Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Hello, and welcome to the Love Pod. I'm joined here by my lovely partner and co-host, Nathaniel, and I'm Julia. And today we are joined by a special guest and dear brother and absolutely radiant soul, all the way from, well, the East originally, but now in the West, coast of Canada.
Where
Michael Jawn Dunphy, founder of Further Liberation. Michael is a living being guided by the awareness of universal truth and devoted to the unfolding of life in harmony with love, freedom, and God's perfection. Through his work, whether counseling individuals, teaching, mentoring, or hosting community gatherings, or sharing through his writing and podcast, he embodies the remembrance that heaven is not somewhere else outside of us, but it's already here within us. And as we were saying, Michael, it's been just over a year since we last saw you. And every time that we've shared space together, whether in, creating music together or reflecting in deep conversations or satsang circles, or even simply just sharing, conscious meals together, it's been a homecoming to truth for us. And from the very first potluck that we met at Mike and Carolyn's, we felt this grounded presence and this resonance and coming together with a soul family connection with you. And, you've always had this genuine heart for community. So we're so honored to welcome you, brother. Welcome to the Love Pod.
Yeah. Now we have to follow that, Michael.
Thank you.
Follow what?
Just joking.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
I mean, what you said pretty much sums it all up. But yeah, I don't know if there's much else to say. I'm just really excited to be in this position where I can speak to people who are interested in bringing about what we hope to be a beautiful world. And I'm just deeply honored. So your words definitely covered everything I would want to say. I try to kind of reduce the amount that I would say about myself in general. So the less is more kind of approach here is what I would go for. I'll let people make their own decisions and own interpretations of myself as they get to know me.
I love that. And sometimes silence speaks, louder than words as well.
I told you to be hard to follow.
Yeah. Well, I would like to break the ice with the first question here. So what first, taking us back into your life a little bit and maybe opening up a bit about your journey, what first triggered you and made you curious about opening up or going on this path of seeking truth and liberation?
The seeking truth, I feel that's, if anything, the theme of my entire life. So aside from seeking like the deeper philosophical truth, I can remember as young as 5 and 6 years old, I had a really difficult time accepting any type of direction or command from my parents without knowing why. Like, I remember it physically difficult. Like, tell me why I need to do this and I'll do it. No problem. But if my mother said, that classic line, "'cause I told you so," I was just like, no, I can't, I cannot. So I pushed back so much. I need to know the reason. So for some reason, for whatever reason, I came into this life needing to know. And that was a common theme throughout my entire life. During my earlier life, it was just wanting to know about everything. I was very curious, always wanting to learn. I would say in my teenage years, it was definitely amplified into wanting to know more about reality, about people, about the universe. I was constantly studying the people around me, and probably mostly because it was a survival mechanism. I felt, the intense environment of battling with other young boys. So it was really helpful to deeply understand the psychology of those other people that I lived amongst, because if I could understand the ways in which that they were pleased and also felt wronged, then I could be a certain way that protected me. So in some ways, I learned how to study people and their minds and their hearts because I was bullied, because I was picked on a lot. So I asked myself, how do I become my bully's best friend? So then I'm not at risk of getting hurt in some way.
I love that.
So I deeply started to understand how everybody had something that they didn't want to be poked at. Like they all had the way when I was a kid, I said, everyone's got a red button. Like you just don't press that red button. If you like, say if a bully was abused by his parents, just don't go there and they won't hurt you. Like that was kind of the idea, is like, I wanted to find out exactly how people thought and felt so I could navigate the world. But then, during my teen years, I started to really question a lot of things. And I had that, it's kind of like almost typical in some ways, this period of getting into rock and roll music from the 70s, particularly Pink Floyd, and smoking weed and just being like, what is this world? Nothing I was raised to believe is the truth anymore. So I started to recognize all the ways in which we're programmed and conditioned to believe certain things. And I deeply questioned, why do I think the way I think? Why do I feel the way I feel? And for a little while, it was just basically because I wanted to know intellectually. I wanted to understand greater truths. I loved the idea of exploring the cosmos. My friends and I became obsessed with space when we were like 17 years old. Constantly, when YouTube first became a thing, we were constantly watching videos about how big space is and how do black holes work and things like this. We were totally fascinated. And then I would say in my early 20s, I went through a really dark period where I started, ironically enough, it came about because I was taking better care of myself. I started exercising more, started eating better. I started being more conscious in general. So all of the unprocessed like sadness and rage and everything from my childhood started coming to the surface to be seen. And so then I found myself kind of debilitated by my own mind, found myself tormented by my own thoughts. So much so that it got to a point that I didn't know how I would go on. So there was this somewhat involuntary and yet needed decision to dive deep into the darkest parts of my own psyche. And I was like, I want to know why I am the way I am. I want to know the truth of why I have so much hatred in my heart. I want to know the truth of why I'm so terrified of the world. I want to know why I feel like I just don't understand anything. And no matter how much I try to fit into society, it just doesn't work. Why am I different than everybody else? Like I had that view of myself that I was the only one thinking about everything. I thought everybody's minds were blank. And I thought I was thinking and analyzing every single thought and emotion I had while everybody else was just kind of running on autopilot, or at least that's the way it seemed to me, because not many people were trained to share their true thoughts and feelings. So that just led me deeper into not only who am I and what am I and why am I the way I am, that just also led me to what is reality? Why are we here? What is the purpose? And I found my own answers. I was diligent. And whenever a new answer came, I would again ask why. Like, oh, I'm angry because I was bullied, but why does that make you angry? What is the mechanism at the root of anger? What is anger? What does it do? Is it good? Is it bad? Why is it here? So I was relentless in my seeking of knowing how things work, knowing what is. And I guess at the root of it really was like, how do we make a good life? How do I find happiness? Because I looked around and I saw many people who appeared to be happy, and I was far from it. And I thought, I'm only 20 years old. I don't know how I'm going to live the rest of my life in this terrible state of being. So I got to figure out something else. And so, yeah, I found my own answers. I found a deep truth with a capital T that seemed to be consistent in every scenario. And that's what kind of set me free. When discovering this for the first time, it was as if I discovered love for the first time in my life. And that was roughly, what is it now? 2025. It was roughly 12 years ago. And since then, it hasn't changed. Like the moment my mind opened the moment my heart opened to actual love and truth, it's been consistent ever since. So it immediately became my kind of ambition to wake up everybody else. Because if I can be happy after wanting to die all the time, then I think everybody can. I think we all just need to know what's true. And so the truth was the guiding force for me, like what is actually real. And every time I'd return to what was real, I would find myself at peace. And so that's the short version of that story. There's plenty of more I could say, but I'll let you guys lead the way in that.
Yeah, I first of all, thank you for sharing all that, Michael. I feel like I know you even more on a deep level now as a brother, just listening to you tell this nutshell of a story. And I'm sure there is a lot more. And, my journey too has had a lot of parallels to yours. And I feel like so many of us go through that suffering. Like there's a purpose in that because it does push us to, it's a goad to awakening to something greater, right? If everything was hunky dory, we wouldn't seek that growth. We wouldn't seek that truth that you say at the capital T, that may be at the top of a mountain, in terms of picturing that journey. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And this conversation is about unpacking that, because I think a lot of people hear that and they don't really know what exactly you mean when you say that, because everyone talks about relative truth these days, like, well, that's your truth. And it's like, and so I think this is a really worthy place to start. And I think it sounds like the foundation of further liberation. So do you want to maybe kind of fast forward us and then we'll do the sandwich, like back and forth, like what was the impulse for further liberation and like, yeah, and then we can explore that as a package.
Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. Okay, further liberation. Back in 2019, I had been working 2 different jobs, living in St. John's, Newfoundland. And at one point, I'm trying to think about what's necessary to say here. So I was working those 2 jobs. One of them was skip the dishes driver. I found out somewhere in that my car insurance didn't cover being a delivery driver.
Oh, no.
So then I was like, what do I do? So I looked for an insurance provider that would provide me delivery driver insurance. And there was only 2 companies on the entire island that provided that. And it was like 10 times the amount of insurance I was already paying.
Oh, wow.
So I thought, well, I can't carry on doing this job because I either have to do it without insurance and take a massive risk, or just do it under the radar, or pay that amount of money, which would basically just kill all my profit. So I was like, there's no point to do this job anymore. So I was basically forced to quit. And then I asked myself, like, what am I going to do now? The other job I have is teaching drums is not paying all the bills. So I have to take a different approach. And I had this kind of epiphany, essentially, why am I not doing what I love to be doing? And what I love to be doing is basically guiding people on their journey, their spiritual path, leading them back to the truth that's within their heart. And I'd been doing that with my friends and family and some people I didn't know very well for about 5 years at that point. And I didn't know exactly how I wanted to approach it. I thought of it many times. It was always a struggle for me to try to make that a living. As you guys could probably relate, when we really want to give our heart's gift, it's a challenge to embed that into the system that we live in. So I found myself just encouraging myself to just do it anyways and just see where it leads me. So I'd already been part of many different Facebook groups that were like conscious awakening, spiritual awakening group, things like this. So I saw posts all the time of people speaking about their like dark night of the soul or something and reaching out for help. So after I lost that job, I did end up getting another job just to support myself. But at the same time, every time I saw a post that resonated with my heart that said, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm awakening, but I don't know what the hell's going on anymore. I was like, okay. So I reached out to them and I would say, hey, I'm here. I guide people on their path. I don't ask for anything in return. I'm just here to be with you because you're my brother or you're my sister. So let's go. And so I started doing that every time I saw a post that truly resonated. There was posts every day, but not everything resonated with me. So if I felt my heart open when I read it, I would reach out. So I started working with people all over the world. And I, at that point, just said, you can donate to me if you want, but you don't have to. And so over the course of maybe the next few months, I was doing that. And then in the fall or the winter of 2019, I also had for maybe a year or two felt this compulsion to start a podcast. I was like, I have so much to say and I just need to get out there and start speaking and letting it be known. So I started a podcast and I had some friends help in starting that. And then I was trying to figure out a name for the podcast. And I thought to myself, well, what am I doing? What is the point of the podcast? What is its function? And I thought, well, it has to be something about liberation, but also innate in that word implies that we're not free. So we have to be free. We have to go and get liberated. And that felt, incorrect to me. There is some truth to it, because I would say that most of my life I was a prisoner of my own mind, and then recognizing the truth, I was freed. But at the same time, what I realized in becoming free was that I was never not free. Like I just had this illusion going on. I was believing something that wasn't real. So I was like, I'm always been free, and yet I got freed again. So it's this paradox. So then the word further came to mind because it implied that we're already liberated. We're just furthering it. We're advancing it. We're making it more manifest. We're bringing more of it into the realm of possibility and into the realm of manifestation. So Further Liberation came as the name of my podcast. And then shortly after that, I ended up moving here to Vancouver Island. I was still doing guidance with people. And then eventually, over the last maybe 2 years, I took my website to the next level and also made a point to put myself out there as somebody here who's here to guide and mentor and counsel. So, through the encouragement and help of some of my friends, I chose to build this website and say, okay, this is what I'm doing now. This is what I'm taking a leap into. Some of the work that I was doing, I left, handed over some of my work to you, and you took over for me. And then I dove more deeply into what I felt I was really, truly here to do. And so over the last year and a half, I've been leaning more into being a personal guide, mentor, and counsel for other beings on the path. And somewhere during that 2-year period as well, I started that weekly satsang that I had at my home that you guys used to attend. So everything, it just continued to be, everything was about further liberating myself. I'm already liberated and I know that I'm free. And yet sometimes I can believe that I'm not, and I suffer for it. So I find myself furthering it by sticking to practices, making sure that I'm being consciously aware of my thoughts and feelings, and then furthering the liberation of the planet by speaking the truth about what I see here, and furthering the liberation of all the other beings in my life and who are working with me by helping them see what's already present for them so it can be processed and understood and heard and eventually let go, so that only their true essence remains. And so that's been kind of the practice for the past 2 years or so. So yeah, I believe that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it more than answers the question, Michael. And what I love about it too, like there's so many people searching for purpose, and that's been a big driver for like Lightheart Vision, recognizing that we all have this unique soulful purpose that only we can fulfill, and we're conditioned a lot to think that, if we don't do something, someone's going to take our place, or there's a lot of fear around that with like AI, like, oh, AI is going to replace it. Now we're hearing, well, it's not AI is going to replace you. It's someone who uses AI is going to replace you. And there's like so much fear. And, that's so ingrained in like the marketing side of things of business. Right. And like you said, like those puzzle pieces of living our purpose and also thriving and flourishing in a society that is basically a transactional society is a difficult leap. There's a gap there. And so even people of integrity, I've noticed, like they will still use those marketing techniques to get people into the door, and then they'll be like, surprise, it's love. But they're still using the fear to be like, if you don't come in here, you're gonna,
Right.
And so I think one of the things that I think is so important is doing things that are in alignment with you, that you would do even if they were free. Not that we should do things for free, because I think that energetic exchange is important, even if it's generosity based, donation based. Like there's an important exchange, because if someone doesn't invest in their own journey and they're just like, I'm just getting all this free stuff from people, well, that they're not really going to get further along their path. So that exchange is important. But the fact that you went and started offering that right off the bat, and know that it's just coming from your heart, you would do this for free. This isn't why you're doing it. I think that's such an important piece that so many of us on this journey and who have these gifts to share, to offer the world, need to hear that. Because if you can do it and you want to do it for free, and it doesn't feel like work to you because it's coming from that place of love, and you can start on that path that way, that's a great way to first get some real experience with people, and really refine those gifts. And then what a great way of confirming that inner knowing that this is my work. What do you think about what he said?
What do I think? Well, I think a couple things. I just want to honor and acknowledge all that you've shared with us. I think you have a really beautiful story that is continuing to unfold. And there's so much that resonates with my heart as well, because I feel exactly the same thing. Through my own awakening process, I feel inspired to help awaken those around me, but not by trying to control or tell them how to live their lives, but by embodying it and being an example foremost and primarily. And so the couple things that spoke to me was, especially whenever you spoke about, your purpose, and how you were so inquisitive early on in your life, and then it led you down this deep dive, and basically you pursuing that and also going through that directly, that experience gave you more compassion, right? And what's so beautiful about it is now you're wanting to help others down that same path. And I find it really interesting, because I find it's actually quite common in life where people are going through something and they're still learning and diving deep into certain areas of their life, but yet they feel inspired anyways to help others on that path when they're still walking it, because we are walking it together, and we all might be at different levels. But when we come together and we share different perspectives and experiences, we can all kind of relate to one another and have compassion and understanding in different ways. And I think when you go onto this entrepreneurial journey, it's like there's beliefs in our mind too that we have to look at, and some of them can be like, well, who's gonna want to listen to me, or how do I know what I have to share is really valuable or going to help people? I think one thing we need to realize is it's not meant to reach everyone, right? Because there will be some people who are not going to be ready to hear what you have to share. And so that doesn't matter there, but the important thing is focusing on the people who are waiting for you to step up, to step into your purpose, so that they can also be influenced positively by you living it. And the other thing I that really touched me, Michael, was whenever you spoke about the further liberation. I absolutely loved the story background behind that. And when you spoke about the realization that you had of you were liberated all along, and it was just this illusion that your mind had given you the experience of thinking otherwise. I think that's really important to believe, because when diving into the topic of limiting beliefs or conditioned thoughts and behaviors we have from whether it's past lives or this childhood or this life, I think the best question to start at, is it really true? Just because there's a belief up here and it's in our head or our mind or whatever it is, I think a good starting point is asking, is it really true? Right. And when you question that and you ask that question, it's like the answers will come if you're opening your heart and wanting to receive and listen. But realizing that the brain can play tricks on us, and the mind especially, because like you said, there's like a safety mechanism. All its job is to protect us and keep us out of harm's way. And so it can start to build these stories and these beliefs around things that are maybe nice to believe, but it's not always true. And so what's beautiful is whenever you step into this journey of wanting to awaken, or at least know more about the truth, asking these questions can give you really exciting answers. And I think it is an exciting process, to like this journey of gradual awakening. And yeah, and just realizing that all along, we were never trapped. It's just this illusion that we have. Yeah, I feel like I'm not really know where this is going, but
That's why it's a conversation. We don't
That's
know
beautiful
where
though. Yeah. There's a couple things you mentioned there that I'd love to speak to, like just that idea of, you said that there's some people that you see that are still using the marketing tools until they get them in the door. It reminds me of this concept of, like, in Zen, a teacher assumes the role that he has some special knowledge. It's almost because the student comes there under the impression that there's this great sage, this great teacher who knows the truth. And so the teacher kind of plays the role. Yeah, you're right, I know, because the student already believes that. So he assumes this position of authority. So then the student will then do what he says. Because if the student doesn't do what he says, if he questions all that he's given, he's not going to gain the teaching from just doing it. So to give a simple example, the student might say, I'm so full of anger. What do I do about my anger? And the teacher says, go sweep the courtyard. And if he didn't have faith in his teacher, he would say, that's not going to fix my anger. What are you talking about? I need to know psychologically why I feel this way. Let's talk about my mom beating me or something like that. Like there needs to be, he'll seek more if he doesn't have faith that the teacher has some special knowledge. So the teacher assumes they're always like, I know, you don't know, go sweep the courtyard. And then so he does this. And then every day, this is actually a story that I think I read in an Alan Watts book. And then he does it every day. And eventually, in the process of just sweeping and being with his own thoughts and feelings, because he has no other choice, he starts to witness his own anger. He starts to understand it more. He starts to get to the deeper root of it. And then he comes back and realizes that the teacher gave him this great guidance. But if he didn't have the faith in the teacher to begin with, if he didn't believe that the teacher had some special knowledge, he would have never done it. So in a way, the teacher is kind of putting on this charade, like, I have special knowledge that you don't have. All the while, the teacher knows the truth, that the truth and the special knowledge exists with him as well. But he needs to show him that by commanding him to do as he says. So that's similar to how, I do it too. I have a website. My website, if it was the truest thing, would just say, I don't know anything more than you. And so just realize, like, but I'm saying all kinds of things that are partially true. Like, even to call myself a teacher, even to call myself a counselor, I shy away from, because to label myself as a thing is inherently untrue. So I even lean towards saying I practice counseling, I practice teaching. That's a little bit more true for me. So even the way that I market myself in the world, I'm trying to be as truthful as possible, but I also have to entice people. I have to make the path to truth or to God appealing, because that's how we get in the door. If we just said, it's not about getting free from your suffering, then who's going to sign up? But if you say you're suffering a lot and I can help you get free, then they'll be interested. And then eventually, when they actually are free from their suffering, they'll realize that it wasn't about getting to a goal. It was about just realizing what already is. And then from there, it's almost as if you're willing to suffer then. Okay, I can take on pain and discomfort because I need to do what's needed to do. So, but that approach to kind of make it appealing, to speak to the psyche, to speak to the ego. You can't tell the ego, hey, you're just nothing and no one, just forget it and you're free. You have to say, hey, I'm here for you. We got this. We're going to get this together. We're going to make this happen. And that language speaks to the ego that wants to make something happen. And then so once you're in the door, you actually start doing the real work. And little by little, you start to disentangle that framework of we're getting somewhere or we need to achieve something. And then they start living, just be life, just be what is, just surrender to the flow. You don't need to get anywhere. You're already there. But just saying those words don't always work. So we need to give them the practices, help them understand a little bit more deeply. And then they start to realize for themselves that they're already there and there's no need to do or have or create something in order to achieve some greater state of being. It's already present once you reveal it. So I thought that was really profound. And I have a similar approach, that there's a little bit of marketing. I don't like that word, but I'll use it for now because I don't have a better one yet.
Well, you're making yourself available in the market, and people need to know what you're doing, right?
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
and you're right. Like if you just say, I am consciousness and you are too, let's hang out,
Yeah.
like that's not really appealing to most people because people have problems,
Yeah, exactly.
people do have problems. And I really love that bridge. I think it's such an important conversation for people in the business world, entrepreneurs to hear, that this is part of, there is I mean, you can define, I find, and I know there's more things you want to talk about, but the word life is so important, funny and interesting and important, and how we give meaning to it is obviously infinite, right? But to see it as also as a game that we're playing here, as the characters that we are being and becoming is I think is a value to take away the seriousness that so many of us can be indoctrinated with in our society, and to have more lighthearted approaches and conversations to things. And it's funny because like it's it's one word, one syllable, four letters, and literally summarizes everyone and everything that ever has been, will be, is. Like it's human beings are so funny to me. Anyways,
Yeah, I totally
I'll just put a
agree.
feather in it there.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I wanted to say, about like when you're having this exchange with people, you said there needs to be some form of investment. And that's similar again, if you're going to see a teacher and hope to learn from them consistently, they want to know that you're invested. They don't want people willy-nilly showing up to the ashram and saying, teach me how to be enlightened. So there's always some form of initiation that demonstrates that they're willing to sacrifice something great. Because if you're not, why would the teacher give you all their time and effort if you're just going to absorb some of the teachings for half a day and then be like, nah, this ain't it. This is not what I want. Because again, the stuff that you learn in the beginning are going to be some of the greatest obstacles to overcome. And so many people are going to be turned away. Like our friend, my housemate and friend Charlie, that you both know, she just did her first Vipassana like 2 months ago. And that requires that you commit. Like, I know that you can still leave. You're not like beholden to stay the full 10 days, but there's this level of you're committing to 10 full days. And here are the things that you aren't allowed to do while you're there, because they're setting up a certain container that requires you to make sacrifices. And if you're not willing to make a sacrifice for an actual change, if you don't want actual change in your life, then you won't sacrifice. But if you are truly willing to make a change in your life and you're ready for more, then there needs to be some sort of demonstration to that, whether it's to your teacher or to just God. Like, I'm ready to stop doing this and start doing something different. The initiation and the sacrifice is part of the process. And in our world, that's kind of translated into, if you're wanting to stick with me as your teacher, as your guide, then it's important for you to commit in this way. And of course, these have different variations of how this relationship can work, but it is a really important aspect of committing to something, is being willing to make a sacrifice or initiate yourself in some way.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Michael. I think it's really important to be practical in these things, right? Because there are so many, like in our travels out west and meeting you, the guiding question for us was, what is conscious community, and how can we contribute to whether it's building conscious communities or building bridges between conscious communities? We were wondering about that. So every town we like drove through, we were, listening and meeting certain individuals or being guided to certain places, and there's always like a feeling to every town, and there is that, like, there's a groundedness to the path, right? And that's why I bring that up. It's like we all have a unique presence, we all have a unique sense of who we are as this human expression, and it's important to recognize that, that this earth walk, this is part of the conversation I hear in the spirit, aspect, and it kind of is in that, community seeker vibe too, is like, there's a lot of sentiments of, oh, it's all Maya, it's all illusion. This is, it's not real. I even sat across a woman who went so far, and I knew she was a studier of the Course in Miracles, and I'm sure we'll get into talking a little bit about Christ consciousness and the Christ letters as well in the conversation. But she went so far to say, like she told me I am an illusion and that I'm the only one that's here, and I was like, this is some of the danger that people can have when they take on, like you said, like these half-day beliefs that are not the full way. They're not arriving at the full experience of truth with the big T. They're taking on a belief, which is just, it might be rooted in a higher truth, but you have to raise to that level of consciousness to be aware of all the ways what that truth means. You can't just hear someone take on a belief and be like, oh, I know the truth now. Everything's an illusion. Well, just because nothing is solid and it's all vibrating particles and this body is, that doesn't mean it's not real. That's a big assumptive belief. So in your guidance with people, I'm sure a lot of these different kinds of questions come up with people who maybe have picked up little crumbs from all the thing. How do you help people guide them really to a sense of clarity of who they really are and what that big T truth, can be found, that can be found within them?
To answer that question of how, it's like, it's challenging because it reveals itself. The process always reveals itself, and it's particular to each individual. But to speak to, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, maybe I can complement your question a little bit.
Please. Yeah.
And if not, that's fine. But I just thought maybe because that is a big question. It really is. But let's say there's somebody who is wanting to raise their consciousness and their vibration a little bit, and they have the awareness that they do have the power to change. But perhaps especially if they've been running on autopilot or with certain, wires being circuited for years or decades or even lifetime, they may have no idea where to start or what practices or change that they could start even implementing. It could be totally a lost compass, right? So what maybe suggestions would you give to someone who's interested in diving into that path and perhaps wanting to open up a little bit more and cultivate and call forth change in their life and raise their vibrations, but just not knowing how to start? Does that compliment?
It's kind of like the beginning and the end question.
Yeah.
Take it back to the beginning.
Yeah. I guess I'm so programmed now that I have so many knee-jerk reactions to questions because I thought so much about these things over the years. There was a point in time where my mind was blasted open and everything was fresh. And whenever somebody asked me a question, it would be like I was discovering the answer at the same time as I'm saying it.
Yeah.
But now I've answered these questions so many times over the years that I have my knee-jerk responses. And so I want to say them because I think they can open up more. And I think you could probably presume that my knee-jerk response to that is follow the truth. So when someone's wanting to get started on the path, I find that the truth is the greatest compass to fixate to. I don't want to use the word greatest. Every path is perfectly equal. So that's but I guess they're all imbued with truth, right? I mean, the idea truth and love to me are synonyms. They're just different forms of the same thing. But I guess what I find with truth is that it comes back to the idea of just being aware, just witnessing, all these other concepts we're aware of. When we are hoping to improve our state of being, understand ourselves more, raise our vibration, all these things come from truth, in that if we are witnessing our own thoughts and feelings, if we are witnessing our behaviors, if we are witnessing the way we feel in our body, we will learn more about ourselves. We will learn more about the present programming conditioning that's already there. And if you are just learning about it, if you are just witnessing it, and you are just following what is true, it doesn't imply that you have to fix, change, or alter anything that you witness. And yet, when you have the approach of looking at yourself without the ambition to fix, change, or alter, you automatically change. If you witness yourself honestly, if you have a tendency to be very jealous, and then you just look at wow, Michael's being jealous again. Interesting. And I'm just open to see that. I don't need to necessarily probe with why am I jealous? Why am I jealous? But there's jealousy. Hello. And you just treat it like a nice friend. And then you just become curious about it. And then it opens, it reveals itself to you. So just being open to what's honestly there. There's jealousy, and jealousy is bad, so I'm not going to look at it. When we call it bad, that's not the truth. There's no good or bad in the absolute. It's all relative. So if we say jealousy is bad and we just consider it bad, we won't look at it any further. We'll try to reject it and deny it and put it aside in a nice little box in the back of our psyche where it can cause havoc. But if we look at it with honesty and say, yeah, there's jealousy in my mind, there's jealousy in my heart, I can feel it in my body. What's going on? What is that? I wonder. Just be curious and full of wonder. And then it starts to reveal itself to you, like, I can feel it in my heart. And it makes me think that I'm not good. And in order to be good, I need to have what that person has. I'm like, where does that come from? And just this ongoing open, what is the truth? What is the truth? What is the truth? Open more and more to what's true about what's there. And then automatically the truth gets revealed to you and you find its roots. And in finding its roots, it either has roots in truth and therefore it carries on with you, or it has roots in illusion and then it falls away in the light of truth. And then you find yourself simply just free of whatever you once believed that is no longer real. So for me, it's like self-inquiry and seeing what is real is super, super powerful. And of course, it's not just the mind. I feel like it's always important for me to say that because, well, I also have my own definition of mind. So it's kind of, I think everything is mind. My mind is sensing the touch of my finger right now. Like all is mine. Perception is mine. So let's say the thinking, cognitive brain, the frontal cortex, the one where logic and reason happens. It's not just logic and reason because there's sensations and awareness that the heart picks up, that the body picks up, that everything else, you're a whole unit of perception. So when you allow that whole unit of perception to be active and working in tandem with itself, mind, body, spirit, all communicating, all resonating, all harmonizing, the truth becomes abundantly clear. And then acting from that space, being led by that awareness is what leads you into all the, let's call them outcomes of a spiritual path, whether it be peace, wisdom, happiness, wholeness, all those become the outcomes of simply being aware of who and what you are. And if you're constantly willing to be aware of what is true, no matter what, no matter how it feels, you will inevitably be led back to the greatest love you can ever imagine, far beyond anything we experience as separate beings loving one another, subject-object love. If you follow the truth, you're led back to the awareness of oneness, to the awareness of infinite and eternal love. And just being in that awareness of that, you can rest in it and watch how the mind might want to pull itself out of it to try to hoard or grab it or put it in a box and say, now I have love and it's all mine. If you can watch that tendency, then just, again, observing it truthfully, it dissolves in the light of truth. And then you're no longer grabbing, no longer hoarding, no longer trying to section it off for yourself and have this like your own source of it. If you just let go, release, and observe what is real, then you see love everywhere. You feel love everywhere. It's constant. It's abundant. It's eternal. And so, yeah, I really emphasize like the truth to me is whenever I find myself suffering, I'm like, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I believing right now? What is Michael afraid of? What is Michael attached to? And I'm like, oh, Michael wants this. That's fair. Why does he want that? Well, he felt this and that made him scared. So now he thinks if he gets that thing, it'll make the fear go away. What do we know though? Well, we know that true love and true happiness comes from not attaching to anything and letting go of all things. Okay, well, let's do that. And then within minutes, I'm back at love. Like I just
And do you actually talk about yourself like that in third person?
All the time. Yeah.
There you go. Because then you don't have that identity aspect, right? You're taking it outside of yourself. And yeah, I really love the way you articulated all that, Michael. I feel really grateful that you shared, and I feel like it's really relatable to a lot of people listening or who will listen to this, because you took us through a direct example with, the emotion of jealousy. And I love how you took us through that process and really inquiring. And it really comes back to, just like you said, witnessing, observing, and then being with it without judgment or labeling. And that's so important. Like that can do wonders. In the beginning, I just want to share that might feel really uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to doing that. like sitting and being with your emotions, and especially if you're like digging them up from those boxes, like you said, that are in the back of your psyche, it can be attached with memories or traumas or experiences that are not comfortable. That's why they're back there in the first place. But if you can just have an open heart and just be with it, like you said, with the ego, maybe hold its hand and just be with it as a friend and say, hey, it's okay, like we're gonna get through this together. I'm not labeling you as good or bad, like that. None of that matters. You clearly are feeling this, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We're going to get
It
through it
is what it
together.
is.
It
It's
is
here.
what is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I
Mhm.
had another question too, but I feel like Nathaniel might want to add something.
Well, I see the bridge here. It's like what you said was so profound about, oneness and having that connection to the eternal flow of love. I mean, and to consider ourselves that we are that.
Mhm.
It's such a different contrasting questions to live your life from a place of eternal consideration. Like, what seeds am I planting now? Because I know that I'm an eternal being is very different than YOLO. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, totally.
it's like YOLO to the max. Like you are one life
Yeah.
forever. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so and people can hear this, right? Every one of us is an eternal soul, and whether we know it or not. So someone listen to be like, yeah, that's true, and they know that there's a remembrance there. And just to bridge what Julie was saying, it's not a journey that is for the faint of heart. It requires a lot of courage
Oh,
to
yeah.
actually feel those things. And we are in a society where I think the main addiction is actually avoidance and numbness, right? Like it is so easy. With $5, you can go and numb yourself with some potato chips, or go hype yourself up on some coffee, or go and, like you said, you can go take some edibles and just go like there's so many ways. Or people will turn to shopping or sex or whatever, and if it's not coming from a place of truth, but in fact trying to avoid those dealing with those painful aspects, which I like to see them as like little children within our wholeness that have
Yeah.
been pinched off, and they're like they're calling out to us like, love me, and we're like,
Yeah.
I'll get to you later. I don't, that's,
You stress
I'm
me out,
busy.
man.
Yeah.
It's like the kid that gets neglected because he's too stressful for his parents. Like,
Yep.
put him in the
Yeah.
room. He's driving me nuts. It's
Exactly.
all neglect.
Exactly. Yeah. And so just listening to that from that awareness, like it is, I mean, it's the most worthwhile thing. Like you said, it's super powerful to walk this path. Like I think that's why, when Christ was trying his most mightily way of awakening people to our potential. That's what he was teaching. He was teaching about our potential when we're fully aligned and our body is fully cleansed of all of those beliefs and what we're capable of as species. And seek first the kingdom of heaven and all the misconceptions of what that means. But it is so it's so powerful and so simple. And like you've experienced, I know, and listening to you, and we've had similar experiences, when you're actually attuned to that power, it's actually very uncomfortable, because it's this level of vulnerability that is like, it's just raw power. Like, to me, unconditional love, we think about it, it's like, oh, I just love everyone, I forgive everyone. But when you're in that raw power that creates the cosmos in the world, it like feels like you're going to dissolve. As
It's a good way
liberating
to
it as
see
it
it.
is,
Hopefully.
it does require the courage of the soulful self to really step into that beautiful truth. And then it also takes courage to live from that place, because it's very disrupting to
Oh, yeah.
be that kind of light in this world.
Yeah.
So could you share a little bit about that? Because I know you moved from the East Coast, the West Coast, and like you've
100%.
you've been on this journey with truth guiding you. Obviously, location is important too, to like, yeah. You want to share about that?
Yeah, sure. You said you also had a question. Do you want to pin
Oh,
it? Do you know it?
uh, yeah. I feel like I maybe answer this one first because it's flowing
Okay.
well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, to speak to that idea of um, living from that space and how it's disruptive. Yeah. I've so much I could say about that. I often in the nighttime, I'll find just little tidbits of wisdom come through me. And one that I wrote down one night was something to the effect of, truth burns you before it warms you. And so when the light of truth is shined on you, whatever is not in alignment with truth, it burns to have it exposed to that light. But if you're willing to have it exposed, then eventually it starts to, again, unfurl, unfold, and realign to your whole system. It's not like it burns it away. It's kind of like it untangles it. You have this like, just, what would be the word? I don't know, like a ball of energy that's tangled in on itself. And when it's exposed to the light, it starts to expand and open, and then finds its like home back in the field where it's balanced and still. And when that's the case, when all of that really dense stuff is kind of reassimilated back into the whole, then the light of truth is so warming. It's like floating in the warmest water that you can breathe under, and you're held by the divine mother. Like it's this juicy, beautiful experience of like, it is, and it is good. And like it's incredible. And so, and it's full of power. At any point, there's this sense of like, I could both go into perfect stillness and my body cannot move, and I could jump up and run a marathon. Like it's the same. You're not like buzzing with energy, but you have the infinite flow at your disposal. So that living in that is certainly challenging in this world. And I will speak personally to it. It's something that has, I won't say held me back, but it's slowed my progression. And I also don't mean that in a negative way. I think it's supposed to happen this way. I feel that when I woke up to this truth 12 years ago, there was a point at which I just came out guns a-blazing. And I was telling everybody the truth all the time. And some of the people in my life were excited and intrigued and wanted to know more and wanted to join me in it. And others were really hurt because I was seeing everything and I was pointing out everything. So bless my friends and family at that time for putting up with me. But I quickly
How very uncivilized of you, as Alan Watts would say, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I was not civilized, man. Yeah. So I found that what I found was that there was a lot of resistance in some of the beings that I was connected to. And I noticed that it hurt, but also I was like, okay, I can let that go. If they're offended, I can let that go. I'll try to be kind to them, but I'm not going to stop telling the truth. But what happened was that I leaned more into the other side of that coin, which is love. And so the way I see it is truth is kind of what can be spoken. If you're speaking truthfully, then there's that. Well, not even necessarily what is spoken. It's getting to the raw material, getting to the core of things. And that's the stuff that I would share that wasn't always received. Whereas I could shift my approach into still loving truth. So if somebody was telling me about their issues in their life, and I saw clearly that it was their attachment to being approved of, like say someone needed the approval of the opposite sex, I would see clearly, I'm like, if you just realized that you're attached to being approved of by men or women, then you would be free of it. Like, don't you see that you're just craving that? And you could just let it go, and you could just look at why you need that and go into why it's there. And then you could let it go and realize that you're already what you need to be. So I would take that approach, and I might get something like, am I not supposed to have a partner? Am I not supposed to be in love? What are you talking about? Like whatever might come up in defense of that, which is fair. So then my approach would, when someone's speaking about that as an issue, I would say, well, you got this. You'll figure it out. I know you're capable of anything, which is also true. Like, it's still the truth, but I'm not pointing out where their attachment is. Look at your little ego. Look at it, shine on it. And then they get defensive and they can't receive anymore.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I wouldn't just keep shining the light on everyone's ego, because for one, I have my own, and I'm not exempt from that experience. And two, I realized that it was not going anywhere. And who's to say that maybe they took that offense and it hurt their heart, and maybe they went and contemplated and they could actually shift. Like, that's a possibility too. Because shining the light so brightly like that, like some famous teachers, like, I don't know, Osho, he wasn't the kindest teacher. He wasn't always seemingly the most loving, but his truth cut to the core, which is what a lot of people appreciated. So there's a place for that. Yeah. But what I, Michael, personally resonate with is, I know this love so deeply in my heart that I want to meet someone there first. I want to go and say, hey, you're perfect just the way you are. I love you just as you are. Now you want to talk, and maybe you can tell me about the ways in which you don't think you're perfect. And then we can look at them in a way that I can show you that even those aspects or faults of yourself are already a perfect expression of the divine, but it's not serving you and it's causing you to suffer. So let's work with it. And let's maybe work with it in such a way that it evolves and changes. And so, to come back around, I have noticed over the years that I've taken an approach that is more loving, and I still speak the truth for people that are willing to hear it and asking me for it. So I love opportunities like this, where people ask me direct questions, and then everybody who clicks on your link to watch this, they get the truth, and they get to choose to do that. So they're free to make that choice. Whereas I have noticed that over the years, there's so many things specifically about the world and the ways in which it's divided, that I find myself hesitant to put myself in that arena. I'm not on either side. Like, I can understand both sides of every divide you name. And yet some of them in certain expressions make sense to me. And some of them seem to be life affirming, and some of them seem to not be life affirming. So I want to speak to the ways in which we're missing the mark. And I recognize that in coming out with those truths, my perspectives on what is true there is going to polarize me. And I'm reminded of Christ when I say this, because there is a point at which he actually says to a crowd of people, I mean, this is from the Bible, so take it with a grain of salt. But he says something to the effect of, I'm not here to unify, I'm here to divide. And when I first heard that, I was like, whoa, what do you mean? Like, I thought it was all about unifying. We're one. What are you talking about? But the way I understood it is that basically he was saying, I'm here to speak the truth of the Lord so clearly and plainly that it will divide the masses. Some people will love me for it, and some people will hate me for it, as is evidenced by his very crucifixion. So I see myself in a similar position. I know the absolute truth of just the oneness and the implications of that, but then to look at the world and see the ways in which we are grossly deviated from nature, grossly deviated from life-affirming practices, to speak them plainly is a challenge to many listeners. So I'm at a point now, and you guys have come at the most opportune time, that I am in the process of putting myself out there more. I've got my website, I've got a handful of YouTube videos, I got a handful of podcasts, but I think it's really, I'm feeling this call, like, why am I not speaking the truth every day, all day? And I do it with the people that are present in my life, but I have this opportunity to connect to potentially the whole world. And I have certain perspectives that I don't see being plainly said in the world. So I was like, well, someone's got to say them. So I'm going to be putting my hat in the arena more. Amazing. And there's a reluctance. There's a
I hear you, man.
It's not a total resistance, but there's a, ooh, here we go. And I know I'll handle anything. I know that I could be hated by the whole world. And as long as I know my truth, I got God's love. There's no end to that. And but my human self still does shrink from the possibility of maybe somebody in my direct community who I have a deep relationship with hearing one of my opinions, which like my personal perspective, and misinterpreting it to be something that it's not. And that hurts my heart to know that somebody would see me that way when I'm not that way. But at the end of the day, I know I can let it go. I know that I'm not going to resist being real because I may offend somebody's sensibilities. I'm going to do my best to be so real that they see that I'm on their side and everyone's side. But that's not always going to translate. That's not always going to be received. So speaking the truth I don't know if I would say it even takes courage. Like, I get that perspective. It certainly does on some level. But to me, I have no other choice.
Yeah.
I cannot feel complete in my life knowing that my fear is keeping my thoughts inside.
Yeah.
And if there's something inside me compelling me to shout from the rooftops, I got to get up on that roof. That's where I'm at now.
And I so much to reflect there. I know, Julia, you have a question, and I also know that you might need to get off the podcast earlier. So I just wanted to let you go, and then because I'd like to really dive into a lot of what you said. Yeah.
I think now is a good time for that. I'm not really, I think my question is in the past now and we've moved on in and it's not super relevant anymore, but I just want to acknowledge you for all that you've shared, because that's really inspiring. Like, you stepping up into your truth, into, your purpose, and right now in this moment, like that's what this life is about. And the more that we can do that and show up in our lives, the more people around us are going to want to show up. And then I feel like it's just going to ripple out. So I really appreciate you. And I feel like this is exactly what the world needs right now, is like people speaking their truth. And then, that's just going to have such a big impact on the awakening of our planet. And it's so key. It's so part of the reason why we are here. And, even the fact that, that even if it were to go sideways, like, you would still have your truth, and you're going to be okay. Like, no matter what happens, we're all going to be okay. And this is just like a continuous life. Like, there's no beginning, there's no end. And so the more that we can play with every moment and realize the fact that we have the power to create and choose like the way we wish to experience life. So getting that clarity on, like, how do I want to play? How do I want to create? What truth do I want to speak? And how do I want to be creative in speaking it? So it's a really exciting time. And I just feel so honored that you're speaking, your truth on our platform today. And I really look forward to people, really listening to this, and maybe then consequently it awakening the truth inside of them, and so forth. So yeah, we're all connected. And I feel lots of gratitude in my heart right now.
That's beautiful, Julian. Yeah, me as well, man. And I'm gonna go into the deep here because, first of all, like, heaven is not earned or owned. It is near and now, right? And that's what happens when you put the horse before the cart. And to me, the horse is divine consciousness, however you want to describe it. And Christ in his letters, which we've talked quite a bit on this podcast about, describes it in so many different languages to convey. As he says, all words are shadow forms. They're not the full expression of the truth. We have to experience it directly for ourselves. And it's only through our journeying into transcendence of the ego, that limited form of perception of life, that we can fully arrive at that direct experience and play, like Julia is saying, from that place of heaven. That's why he said, seek first the kingdom of heaven. I mean, if we took a literal Christian interpretation of that, that's like drink the Kool-Aid and get off earth, because just go to heaven first, right? Like, why would you say that? You wouldn't, So like, heaven as a state of consciousness is what you're talking about. And I agree with you. I think the time is now. We have felt the call, and I have been opening up more and more about, and I want to dive in here because although I don't think I've gone into this level of things before on the podcast, and I want to, because it was at your satsang that I revealed, my journey, my remembrance, and it was actually synchronistic because it was Vipassana. It was the first time I did Vipassana. You can imagine I was like 18 years old, or maybe I was 19. I think I was 18. Went to a Vipassana. I had so many of my energy centers swirl open, and I went through worlds and worlds and worlds of experience, like colors unlike I ever. And I know it's not about focusing on the imagery of things. So I was always just bringing back to truth, back to truth. But one of the most profound remembrances that I had was seeing the procession and being in the crowd, witnessing the crucifixion, and feeling a very deep, deep sense of personal regret, of anger, of just guttural pain, of humiliation, and just wanting everything to me to stand up in this crowd of people and yell that this is so wrong, that he did nothing wrong to deserve this kind of treatment, this humiliation in front of his family, basically being publicly murdered. But I stayed quiet. And I came out of the meditation and I was still contemplating. I was in an early part of my journey. I was contemplating the nature of time and physics and quantum. And I was very much in a scientific mindset. And I was like, did I actually have an opportunity that I entered into a different timeline where I could have affected the change and that it would have changed everything? Like I was very much like open to the truth. And it was in that Vipassana that I had a similar realization that Buddha talks about, that everything external to us is happening within us, so that the universe is really within. And we're like this, what's the, like, it's like we're not a mirror, but it's like there's an inverse relationship we have with all that is. And I had some of these direct experiences, and you know, in meeting Julia, many synchronicities occurred. And when I first met her, you know, I talked about some of these things, and I met one of her teachers who remembered me she knew who I was, the identity of that life. And she didn't tell me, she didn't say anything, but she lit some frankincense and I did this meditation, and I had more clear pictures of this life. And I knew that in that life I was one of his sisters. And I had carried that sadness for a long time, and I took on his teachings and used his teachings to help other groups of people and communities that had kind of lost their way, as you say, because the ego that's what it does, right? It does pinch us off from that reality that you're talking about, because it gives us this sense of separation, like you're saying. And to me, that's the evil that came to me, or the acronym that came to me years ago is evil, that is every vice imposed on life. And we all have to deal with it, right? Right? It's every vice. Wow. And it can be as gross as, yeah, murdering publicly a master of love, like just for the sake that he told the truth. You know, it's like what you were talking about. If you continued on that path and just revealed everything, you know, from just a pure thing, well, that could be the consequences of that kind of life, because it is very disrupting to a society that has rules and control mechanisms in play. It puts a lot of attention on an individual. So
do you remember in that satsang
yeah,
what Michael said to you?
I'm getting to that. Yeah, I'm getting to that. Yeah, because you know, so for you gave me a gift in that time, because I was carrying, and I did a lot of like inner healing and my own relationship with Yeshua and Christ as so, you know, to gotten such a deep level, because I've done what you're saying. Like I've sat with some of these parts and really looked at the truth of uncovering them. What's the truth? What's the truth? And I remember being in that satsang, and you gave me the perspective of him looking at me in the crowd. And I actually went there in consciousness, and I felt everything he was feeling, and all he had for me, and I could see I could see my face, the crowd from his vantage, and it was just pure love. And that's the reminder that we all have this journey, right? It's like we all are this. And however the picture, the story comes about, it's always that return. And a big theme on our show, Michael, has been that children are our greatest, not only are they our greatest teachers, they're our greatest leaders, because they lead from this. Our hearts are open, like they feel everything. They reflect the truth to us. They tell us the truth. You know, it really, you know, we were sitting at the table last night, and Luciana's sitting there. And I made quesadillas. Julie was supposed to make them. I ended up making them because they were late getting home. We were supposed to go around the neighborhood in the outfits and all that stuff.
It's Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. And we're all sitting there, and she was really enjoying the quesadillas. Like she likes cheese, Italian girl, right? Anyways, so she's sitting there, and she just all of a sudden she said it quietly, and Julia heard her. I'm so grateful Julia is a good listener. And Julia had to repeat it because I was in the kitchen, and she's like, guys, do you hear what Luciana said? And we all kind of listened to her. Yeah, and you could feel her saying it. Like she was not just repeating something. She says, I love you guys. Like she was saying to Julie's parents, and
just randomly out of nowhere. Like we were all having a conversation, and all I hear out of my left ear is like, I love you guys.
It was so beautiful.
Random, but not random at all. And then like she started saying it individually towards each of us, like, I love you, Mama. I love you, Nonna Andila. I love you, Nonno Mike.
She's such a character.
Like it was just like, and you could tell that she was just feeling that, so she just wanted to share that.
She was feeling, it was beautiful.
What a blessing.
Yeah, totally.
I can actually go bring her right now just to say hi to
That
Michael.
would be
I'm going to be tapping out of this conversation. I'm so grateful for all that you shared. I know you're going to go even deeper with Nathaniel, but you guys continue, and I'll bring her just to say a quick hello, and then I'm going to leave you two at it.
All right.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you, Michael. I
It's
appreciate
so
you,
good to see
brother.
you.
You too.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'll be back in a bit.
Just give me one moment to adjust this here, Michael.
Okay.
Right. Wow. There's so much of what you said I think is so important. And I do feel like we are really in a time where we're called to not only speak our truth, but to really embody it. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what that means to you when I say that?
Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is the more obvious perspective of it being in the body. And what I mean is that, let's say if you have opposing beliefs, you believe, I'm unworthy. It's something you develop when you're a child and you get that message from the society you're in. So then you have this belief that I'm unworthy, but then at some point you also develop a skill and you think you're the greatest at it. And you're like, I'm the greatest and I'm unworthy. And you don't necessarily see these two opposing beliefs in your conscious mind, but they're present in your subconscious. So they're opposing. And so the fact that they're opposing and they're opposing energies and they can't coexist because they are the antithesis of each other, then they create this tension. And this tension actually permeates your whole physical form. It permeates your whole energetic form, which by consequence permeates your whole physical form. So it's when we have incoherence or conflict in our own psyche, in our own heart, in our own belief system, that creates this tension. And this tension manifests in our energetic form and therefore our physical form. And that creates, you name it, pain, discomfort, disease. And so to embody it is when we understand the truth, it permeates our whole form. When we know what is, and there's no contradiction, there's no battle of opposing forces, then there's this open channel of that loving flow. Oh, hello.
You just said no, Michael. That's so funny. You remember Michael?
This is not no Michael. This is another Michael that he held you when you were like 4 days old, 4 days young.
Yeah.
On Vancouver Island. Do you remember him?
Circles.
Hi.
You remember him? Can you
so
say
good to
hi?
see you again.
Say hi, Michael.
Can you say hi to everyone who's listening? Hi, everyone.
It's okay.
Say hello.
She's just waking up.
Your eyes is all I need.
Michael. Do you remember Michael? He stared
What do
into
you
your
have?
eyes when
What's
you were
that?
just 4 days.
That is yellow orso. It's a little bear that's been 3D printed.
Oh,
Yeah.
can I see?
She's a lot bigger than last time you saw her.
It's so good to see you,
We're glitching out
Luciana.
here.
Glitching out.
Okay, I just wanted to say hi.
Yeah, it's so good
you
to
Love
see
you,
see
little
me?
girl.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
She's such a character. She
We'll see you again
so
soon.
Julia is Mama Julia and I'm Papa Nathaniel.
She calls us by our first name. Like,
Yeah,
Awesome.
same with the grandparents. It's hilarious.
That's
Like
amazing.
she is she's very bright. So her name is very fitting. Yeah. I think, getting back to what you were saying, Michael, I want to share. This is actually something that serendipitously I was shared with actually filling our water up at River's place, River on the island. And it was her friend who was visiting from the UK. And she said, you know what? Because I was talking about, did I even mention this? I don't know. But to me, the symbol of the caterpillar and the butterfly is such a symbol of Christ consciousness to me, because we literally go through this transformation.
Yeah.
And I think it happens like on a cellular level, multidimensional, and everything. Even in the letters, I mean, we can dive into some of the more profound parts of the letters that I think are very important. And I will put a pin on that because I want to return. But what she said to me, just in reflecting what you're saying, is that apparently all caterpillars have what are within them called imaginal cells. And this actually holds the blueprint of what they will look like as a butterfly. And when the caterpillar goes into the chrysalis, those imaginal cells start activating. And the caterpillar does not just like, yeah, let's do this. It actually has a lot of resistance, which may be a form of fear that comes up. And a beautiful acronym that came to me recently for fear is feel everything and remember. So as this caterpillar is remembering what it's to become, it has resistance and struggles against it. It pushes because its identity is, no, I'm a caterpillar. I'm not this thing, right? And what she said so interestingly is that the exact energy that is required for the transformation of that caterpillar into the butterfly is provided by the energy of the resistance that it gives to that transformation. So I think a lot about this in terms of the ego and what its importance is as our as we're gifted with this opportunity of individuation of consciousness. As Christ says in the letters, that, like, the ego is the guardian of our identity. And without an ego, we would have no impulse to get up, make food for ourselves, to get dressed. It really gives us a prompt to engage and survive. It really helps us to survive. And without it, we just wouldn't. But there comes a time on all of our journeys where those imaginal cells that we have that know our true potential and are hidden in the seeds of our own expression, they start activating as we kind of do this uncovering when you're talking about this truth. And I've wondered a lot about what the cocoon is for humanity. I think it is the ego itself is the cocoon, and as we peel the layers, we're actually struggling against the shell, and eventually we emerge to a greater understanding of who we really are. And there are, I believe, many examples throughout humanity, whether it's Rumi the whirling dervish, or Milarepa, who is putting his hands in the walls and demonstrating that, or Buddha, who showed that we could transcend suffering, and of course Yeshua, I think, painted the most poignant demonstration of what is possible when we are fully like clear channels of that divine intelligence. I mean, I'll just say this one thing that I think is so fascinating about the letters. And to me, one of the but actually probably the most fascinating part about the letters is when people do hear about them and they have an inclination to, they love Jesus or whatever, and don't read them. I find that the most fascinating part, because it's like if a being of that high nature wrote letters to you and to all of us, I would want to read them. But that's a question in my mind, why? But one of the things, everyone talks about Christ walking on water. And it was, he describes that his enlightenment was not just full on off switch. Like, it actually was a gradual progression. And he said, even, until he was completely liberated from the body, did he really experience full enlightenment, full divinity, right? So there is a limited aspect of this form. Like, it can only contain so much of vibrational energy. But on that particular day, his disciples he would often go and basically recharge his batteries and meditate by himself, go in caves. And he was thinking, just go rest. We keep pallets in caves that he would meditate in, and he was going to rest and he lied down. But he said he became so aware of the universal and approached it so closely that his body was so infused with this nature of intelligent love that he floated out of the cave. And he was actually in physical, like, we're not talking about an out of body experience, in the body, floated out of the cave. And it was only upon witnessing his disciples in the predicament they were in that his compassion like actually lowered his consciousness to the point where he was walking on water. Like, so if that's possible for us, as human beings, when we become so infused, he says that if we truly believe as a species that we can fly, eventually we will grow things akin to wings that will allow us to fly. So that portrayal of an active involvement in evolution as this loving solution to life is just so profound to me, and is so much deeper than many of the miracles that are portrayed in the Bible, that just show this whole other level, right?
Yeah. This funny kind of parallel I thought about while you were speaking is the story of Ramakrishna. I don't know if you ever read much about him. I read the Gospel of Ramakrishna 5 or 6 months ago, and he was someone that could easily fall into samadhi, which is this enlightened state, the full awareness of the universal consciousness. And because of that, it's not necessarily that he would leave his body. I kind of take issue with that moniker or whatever you want to call it, because in my experience, when I am transcending the body, I'm still very much in my body. Whereas I've had also other experiences where it felt like as if my astral or my just my consciousness left my body. But there's a rising of consciousness to such a pure state that you're still very much in your body, but you're also everywhere. You're in everybody. Like you are the universal substance which exists in all things. And so Ramakrishna could fall into that so easily. And he would leave his body, let's call it that for now, so often that one of his, I don't know if it was disciples or one of his teachers, but some guy used to follow him around just to bring him back. And sometimes he would actually beat him with a club so that the pain would bring him back to his body.
Wow.
Because he'd be so gone that he'd just be like, whatever, it's pain. And he wouldn't even recognize the vibrations until they got severe enough that he'd be like, oh, okay, I'm back. And then while he was back, this person who helped him would then shove food into his mouth so he didn't starve to death. Because his disciples wanted him so badly. They're like, please don't leave us. And he's just going into samadhi all the time. They presume that eventually he'll just leave his body for good. But they're like, no, we need to learn from you. So they followed him around and tried to always bring him back from samadhi after some time. And then they would almost force feed him because he had no interest in eating. He even had like some issue with his throat at one point where it became almost impossible for him to speak, or became excruciating for him to speak. And the doctor at the time recommended that he not speak so he can heal. And he said, well, I have to tell the truth, so I'm not going to do that. So he would speak all day long while he was present in his body, regardless of how much he hurt. And his disciples would say, like, why don't you take care of the body? He's like, oh, this whole thing, who needs this? I'll just use it while I'm here and then I'll leave. And so he had this mentality that was totally beyond caring for the body. And I'm not suggesting that that's the way, but that was his way. That's what he demonstrated, is that he derived wisdom from communing regularly with that universal consciousness. But if we're communing with that universal consciousness while still in form, while still in separateness, we only get a limited view and a somewhat distorted view. So sometimes it's helpful to go into deep states of meditation where you achieve samadhi so you can see clearly what is real. And then maybe with intention, you can maintain some of that wisdom as you come back into the body and be able to speak it. But I've had that experience myself. I see things so clearly, understand them so fully. And then somebody might be present with me and say, so what do you see? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I cannot put it into words. So I have to find some metaphor. I have to find some way of communicating it, but it always feels incomplete. There's to speak the truth. Like you said, it casts shadows because it makes a form. Forms cast shadow. Therefore, they're not the full thing. They're not the full light. It has to be fully experienced and felt in your own being in order to really know it. So I thought that was just hilarious anecdote, because that whole book is hilarious. That guy was such a ridiculous person. Just, having to get beat near to death in order to feel enough pain to come back.
I definitely have not read that, but it sounds like something I would like to read. And so much of what you said is just so important part of the dialogue in this day and age, and something I contemplate a lot about, especially since I spent so much of my frame of reference in circles and ceremony and my background in Indigenous wellness, listen to different elders and many of them that I talked to, and I would talk about these letters once I had knowledge of them and my own experience, and many of them, have great respect for Jesus, as they would say, or Christ, and they understand that there's universal truths and many different teachers to these things. And as you talk, as we talk more about embodiment, I'm reminded of this book that opened my mind to some of the evolutions of our spiritual perspectives as a whole, right? Like, so that the Buddha, talked about basically, okay, so I recognize that I'm creating samsaras, I'm creating these twists in things, and I'm causing the reincarnation cycle, and I have to stop that. So let's just overcome suffering and then create no more karma so we can get out of Dodge and have heaven, right? And so that is a certain level of enlightenment. And then the Sufis kind of introduced, okay, well, that's from the root up, and that's one way. But what about the other way? Because so many old souls who have transcended and gone into some of these higher realms choose to come into incarnate to have these experiences. So maybe that's a big part of the importance, is actually bringing these teachings. As you said, there's a value to the people that are here to have this knowledge and these diverse perspectives of love. Julia was alluding to this earlier, and I call it the law of the circle. This just came to me because I've spent so much time in circles, and one of the beautiful things about circles is it really promotes real listening more than thinking. And so if you're there sitting in the circle, like, what am I going to say, what am I going to say, you're not listening to others. So it's really encouraged, like, just listen deeply, feel people, listen to them, and know that the creator's at the center. Like, what stays in the circle, what's said in the circle stays in the circle, because the circle is strong enough to carry it, because it's the center is the creator, so you're not proclaiming things to people in the circle, but they're listening to you, holding that space of just pure consciousness. And so I believe that the more of us that do have these conversations from different angles around whatever's in the center, if it's a fire, whatever the truth is, how it's represented, we all get the different perspectives of that. And the more that we listen to one another, where we communicate our unity in community, it expands our awareness of the wholeness of that circle. And then we can really start having fun and playing with the truth. Because, I mean, the truth isn't just about recognizing the truth. It's a co-creative adventure we're all
Life
involved.
begins when you recognize the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's, to me, is really about embodiment. And we're in an exciting time because, like, there's some scientific terminology that we can understand, right? Like, we know we've measured telomere growth when we're attuned. We know about heart brain coherence and things. And there's another thing that one of our really beautiful teachers that we've worked with, Dr. Sue Moroder, introduced to us, as she introduces the central channel breathing and very much yoga principles and experiences, her own direct experience, but from a Western lens. So she has that scientific articulation. She talks about it as we increase biophotonic density in our body.
Okay.
And so our body actually, like the cells of our body, everything has actually the infusion of a higher level of consciousness, and actually is measurably brighter. And so that explains the opening of the eighth chakra above our head, the crown. It explains also why we are able to infuse more of our consciousness into the earth below us, and that actually goes into the chakra beneath us. And the more of us that do that, we light up the world, because she is one symbiotic being as well, right? She has a consciousness, and anyone who sits by a tree, maybe takes off your shoes and listens to her, can tune into her. She has a certain energy. And that to me is from my Indigenous background, in listening to so many different elders, I feel like that is a big part of the teaching. And also another thing that I love about the letters, because he introduces what he wasn't able to talk about, more than 2,000 years ago, the concept of the mother, because so many people, I think, in the religious world can feel triggered by the term father, especially that we call priests father. I never really got that. It never felt right to me, and for various reasons. But this concept that the mother consciousness and the father consciousness, I mean, we all experience it. We require this to come into the world, but they balance each other. The father is that intelligent love, and the mother is that loving intelligence. The father is
I like that.
The father is the will, right? It's the yang, it's the activity, it's the movement. The mother is the form, it's the bonding, and it's the rejection. It's the purpose in life. It's the nurturance, right? And these things express physically as electricity and as magnetism.
Yeah.
And that explains this beautiful unfolding in a physical dimension of the electromagnetic drive that is drawn from the universal, because those two qualities, impulses of divine consciousness are in mutual restraint forever, and are the space that are around and within us. So I've never heard that lens in, any other place other than the Christ letters, and I feel like it, I just want to circle back, because what you said about you have a unique vantage of truth, I think that is so important for people listening to this to hear, because every conscious individual has a unique spiritual journey and perspectives to add to the wholeness. Just because you can speak the truth, like other, like Ramakrishna and Yeshua and Muhammad, all these beings, we're all part of the whole. It's like the party wouldn't be the same without you. So we need your voice. We want you. We want the benefit of the gifts that you bring with the journey that you've brought, and your perspective and presence is so valuable. So yeah, that's my rant. You can call me Papa Rant.
That was great, man. Yeah, I really appreciate the perspective that you offered. Maybe it's rippling out, because I'm starting to see it a lot more. The connection to the magnetism and the electricity and all of these deeper scientific expressions of the more philosophical points of view. Like, there's a great merging happening now, and I'm seeing more and more expressions of that perspective, of how we often notice that there's like this propensity to see it all as kind of not fantasy, but just magic or something like that. But even there's a mechanism to magic. Everything is lawful. And what I'm seeing more and more now is the expression of the laws and how they actually work. And seeing like the torus field and the energy that moves up and the energy that moves down, and how it pulsates out when it's in harmony, and all like heart-brain coherence, all of it is giving more validity to those deep spiritual concepts that have been around for millennia. But now they're actually having the tangible language for the more logical, rational thinker to grab onto, which is absolutely amazing. And that's certainly something I find myself gravitating towards too, because my discovery of truth was through a scientific lens.
Me too.
I did not have a spiritual belief of any kind. I basically rejected all spiritual beliefs. If anything, I would have probably called myself agnostic. But if someone had asked me at 19 years old, make a bet on whether or not there's a God, and if you win, you get $1 million, I would have said absolutely no God, without a doubt. Like, I wouldn't have hesitated. That was definitely where I was leaning. But again, I would say I don't know for sure. But if there's a lot of money on the line, then I'm going to say no God. And so I definitely leaned into the more of the materialist atheist dogma. And because of that, I studied a lot of I won't say I studied physics in that, like, I actually sat down and did the math, but I understood the concepts of physics, and I dove deeply into how they worked, and a lot of different avenues through a scientific lens. And it was understanding the kind of connection or sameness of energy and matter that just kind of blew the doors wide open for me. Like, okay, everything that I think is matter is actually just vibrating energy. And it all came from one source of the Big Bang, and that's as far back as I went then. And then so just the scientific lens was super powerful, and I think it's super important because, again, it solidifies an understanding in the ego. So we can have these experiences where our mind is blown open and we have an understanding of universal intelligence, or we have an experience of it that allows us to feel that universal love. But then when we come back into the mind is still filled with all kinds of other ideas. So what happens, or what needs to happen in a sense, is for the mind to be cleansed of all false ideas and to kind of solidify into the understanding of how it all works. So having the scientific knowledge, having the psychological knowledge, having all these different perspectives of models of thinking that actually reflect the truth or echo the truth, they become your new ego. And so now I can go into meditation and I can seek deep into myself in such a way that I leave my mind behind. I leave the thinking behind. I become so still that the waters of thought just become perfectly still in such a way that I don't think a single thing. And yet I know all that there is. And so to come back from that without any understanding of it, you're so subject to get lost in fear again, because you're like, well, that was amazing and it was love, but I don't know what it is and I don't know how it works. So how do I trust that it's a real thing? It might've been just my mind, a hallucination, whatever. But when you study the metaphysics and you study the physics, then you can actually see that this is all what it is and how it works. Then when you come back into the mind and your mind only says things that are true, that says, oh, we're all torus fields and we exist in one major torus field, and there's an infinite field of vibration from which all things emerge, and they're kind of like sound moves through the air, like consciousness moves through the field and creates matter. To have all these analogies and understandings and even the deeper physics of it are so helpful to, when you land back in the body, you kind of trampoline back up into the awareness again, because what you're thinking and what you're seeing and what you're understanding is a reflection or an echo of what is absolutely true. The words and the models aren't the absolute truth, but they're a reflection and an echo of it. But if you come back down, if you have like an experience of Christ's love, so to speak, and then you come back down and the only model you're offered is, yeah, Christ was loving you, but now in order to feel that again, you have to confess him as your savior and basically force yourself to believe one thing, and then condemn all the darkness, condemn the mother, condemn the feminine, put all those things outside of you and come back to only the Father. That separation is not a model that actually reflects the total truth. So if you come back into a model that is not reflective of the truth, you're destined to fall back into fear and separation again. And then you'll pray for Christ to come and save you from it. And then you'll follow all the rules and things that are written down as if you're some sort of automaton, deriving its inspiration from something outside of you, which again just amplifies how separate you are from the Lord. And that's where things like demonic possession can happen, because your fear is so great of not being in the good graces of the Lord that some sort of negative thought pattern could kind of inhabit your mind and lead you in a terrible direction. And then you're split amongst yourself. So the models of understanding of oneness, of deeper metaphysics, are so important. That's why the truth is the foundation. The truth is like the scaffolding that holds you in the infinite flow. It's the riverbed that allows the flow to move through. If there's no riverbed, water's going everywhere and it's chaos. And if there's no gravity keeping it to the earth, then it's just flying all around and nobody understands anything. So I see truth as the main practice, because it's what allows you to remain in a separate self. You know, at the same time, you're not a separate self. But like you said, right now, in order for me to communicate to you, I have to derive knowledge from my experience and from my past and from my language model. And all of those things are necessary in order for me to even communicate what's true to you and connect to you on a deep level. Whereas if we are only in the love aspect and we only want to feel the love and we have no reverence for what is true, we won't build a scaffolding and it won't sustain itself. If you think of the tripart being in the Hindu faith, you've got Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And as the creator, the sustainer, and the destroyer. And I see Vishnu as the sustainer. It's the scaffolding that keeps truth going. It sustains what is real. And then if truth ever gets to, if that scaffolding becomes so devoid of life and the creative force, then it becomes rigid. And then Shiva comes in and basically destroys it all. And it has to start anew. But the very scaffolding that is in that flowing water, that very, like the flowing water itself is able to flow because it has the straight and true direction. So everything is layered in that way. Truth, when we forget everything we know, when we humble ourselves and we fall to the feet of the divine and say, I know nothing, what you end up discovering is that you already knew it all. But when your mind thought you knew it and you're holding on to ideas that aren't true, you could wipe all those ideas clean. You could literally lose your mind and you'll be left with what is present. You'll be left with the universal mind that is already here and available to you. So it's just another reason, I suppose, that I feel that the truth is so important to practice in your life, to be truthful to yourself, to witness what is real and not real in your own self, and to come back around to embodiment. I think this all extended from the idea of embodiment. The embodiment is an embodied frequency that happens when you practice and live in the truth. And the principles that you discover through that truth, through that experience, have to be acted out. Like if you're like, okay, I know I need to be kinder to others. I know I need to be generous. I know I need to be compassionate. But then you go to your job and you lie to your boss, or you judge the person sitting next to you because they're being annoying at their desk, then you are not embodying the living practice of what you discovered. So it's not necessarily that it just lives in your physical body. Are you showing up in the world representing the actual truth, representing actual unconditional love? And if you're not, then again, you're going to create imbalances in your being. And as I say this, I'm aware that this isn't to impose this way on anyone as if, well, I have to kind of be dishonest at my job, so what am I supposed to do? Quit? Just honor where you're at, do your best in where you're at, and take steps towards more truth.
Yeah.
I've spent the last 10 years slowly, gradually shifting the way I show up in the world, so my work reflects more and more truth. But as I said earlier, I still do that little bit of marketing in the way that I make myself available to the world in an enticing way, in a way that makes people go, there's something about that guy. I want to go learn from him. I have to assume this role that I've got something they don't, in a way, so that they can feel intrigued and come towards me, so then we can figure out what's needed for them. So it's never incumbent upon us to live perfectly. Again, it's the Christ model is something that we aspire to. And of course, we'll all get there. Each and every soul arrives at that perfect expression at some point. Like that's the nature of consciousness, is to completely let go all that is false at some point. But there's no rush. And one of the great teachings of the Lord is that every single point on the path is equally perfect. Even when you are going into the absolute death spiral of addiction and neglect and separation from every single being in your life, we can look at that as like, oh, that's going towards death, so that's bad. Like, no, it's going down to the bottom, so you can feel the tension at the bottom where everything accumulates, and you have no choice but to either pierce through into another dimension or burst out like an exploding star, and your whole life changes. So that even that spiraling downward is a necessary mechanism in consciousness for us to be able to make a different choice. And there's no going into the dark so deep that you never escape. You either burst through the other side or you burst back open again. And so I think it's important for us to know that even what we consider the dark, even what we consider negative, even what we consider life-threatening or death-affirming is all part of it. And that doesn't mean we have to encourage it. It doesn't mean we have to consciously choose it. But if you see someone on the side of the road that is barely conscious, and we see them as, oh, they're going the wrong way, you're misguided. There's no wrong way. He's finding his way to God in a different way. And he's taken the long way around so he can learn the deep lessons of the suffering that he's embarking on.
And I mean, that points back to that acronym that I was saying, like every vice imposed on life can be as simple as that kind of thought. It's a judgmental thought, which is of the ego, of separation. Oh, they're going the wrong way, I'm going the right way. And so we need to look at these aspects of ourselves if we're really if we're really committed, like you said, on the path. I mean, so much of what you said, Michael, is so important, and it reminds me of how paradox is really a doorway, because when we do come back from those ineffable expansive experiences, we come back to, oh, I'm still a human being. I still got to do my dishes and feed myself. And it is a paradox, right? Like we have the experience of separation, but we are one. So like, and there's so many paradoxes that you can, and really it was actually paradox that really was the beginning of my mind-opening experience. I was contemplating a lot about balance and space and mathematics, and contemplating equality, and Zeno's paradox is, you can never really touch anything, and yet we're always touching everything if space is what's connecting everything. So it's like, that did a lot of things to my mind in deep contemplation. And I want to also mention, what I think this is such a beautiful conversation that I love having with you is the importance of our scientific inquiry into the cosmos, into ourselves in the microcosmos, and how that our ability to articulate levels of truth from that place allows us to evolve the consciousness of our species. I think it's actually, our technology, with the root word of technology, is the idea. We think that the technology is the gadget of the cell phone or the VR glasses,
Right.
but that's not the technology. The technology is the ideas that's behind that allows us to expand and extend our consciousness in a different way. So I actually have no fear. I think these things are tools, and yes, they can be used harmfully if we are guided by the ego drive that does still see its as self-separate and seeks profit over people and authentic, truthful connection.
Yeah.
And yet, I look at something like I got to try a Vision Pro. Apple, you can sponsor this show. Totally, it's okay. Uh,
What is a Vision Pro? I don't know
a
that one.
Vision Pro is basically a very high-end virtual reality glasses, but you can
Okay.
totally see everything. And you
Right. I've
go
seen
in
these.
there,
Yeah.
and you can have, but the experience of it, like you take a photo with, I didn't realize like if you take a spatial photo on a camera, you go in there and you're like actually in that memory again. It's all 3D. So if
Ah,
somebody's like
wow.
blowing out birthday candles or something, you're actually in it and you're seeing it
Whoa.
again. So you can like our ability to transfer memory and experiences as a species is growing. And I think it's just going to expand to the point where it's like, oh yeah, well, we're just consciousness. We can actually go back in those memories and
Mm,
because we've embodied the fullness of ourself. We know it's a one moment.
yeah.
But like the first time I put on VR glasses, I was painting and sculpting with light. I made this like
Mm,
3D thing, and then you could open it up and fold it. You could play it around. You can open it up and create another world inside, and you can have multiple people in the space all building from this very like fifth dimensional kind of experience. Like you're immediately manifesting with light. So I
wow.
see it as a stepping stone to the remembrance of our greater potential as conscious beings. It's like, but
Mm,
it's a stepping stone for our species. So
mhm.
yeah, I love what you said about that because I think so many people like, well, pick or choose, and I think this is one of the gifts that the Christ letters gives us is it really not only does he say it's a bridge between his transcendent consciousness and our own, it's not like another Bible to study,
Mm,
he says like in reading these letters and contemplating them, really that's the key. It's not reading
mhm.
them and the way they're formatted. He says these are a bridge so that
Yeah.
I can start directly communicating with you because they're
Mhm.
letters, right? It's like he wrote them. He's our friend. He wrote them to you. And the other thing though is the bridge between science and spirituality because we're entering this time, like you said, there's this miraculous bridging that's happening, and our
Mhm.
ability to share ideas and that are comprehensible and also clear and direct ways to have some of these direct experiences are
Mhm.
available to us. But like you said, it's not for everyone at this time. And that was actually, I think, one of the most important things because I wanted to loop this back in, and it's coming up now. But something earlier said when we first start these journeys, like I had this too. Like I just wanted to tell everyone about the truth. It started when I learned about like holistic health and eating properly. I'm like, you guys need to change your diet. There's toxins, and I still feel that way, but
Mhm.
I don't go around telling anyone how to eat.
Yeah,
And in the
exactly.
same way, I don't preach spiritual concepts. I love talking about them. I'm passionate. It might even seem like I have so much to share, but like his third temptation, that wasn't of the devil, was of his ego when he had the vision, like I can become a great ruler and I
Mhm.
can I can become very powerful and wealthy and I can help people. And he describes in the letters like his body just picked up in speed and he was so uh effortlessly climbing up this highest mountain peak and he was
Mm,
overlooking the whole valley. And it was very strongly revealed to him from the divine that it is not his purpose to undo the individuation process of others. That we all have chosen on some level of remembrance are this journey for ourselves. So who are we to go blast people awake and be like, wake up, like that's the uncivilized part that, we were talking about earlier. And I think we're finding each other, our brothers and sisters, our soul family, through resonance, through vibration. And anyone who's listening to this and is like sticking through this, it's because they're feeling that. They're feeling you, they're feeling me, they're feeling these words are resonant of truth. And they probably have a lot to add, or maybe they're just beginning. But even from that point, there's a lot to add because to me, it's all about questions. It's like I don't have a bunch of knowledge. And I got a question for you, man.
Okay.
Because like even as I'm talking right now, I've noticed like from decades now of meditation and stuff, I don't actually think very much. It's in fact like I actually find when I start thinking too much is when I get like I just feel uncomfortable. But like even as we're having this conversation, I'm listening to you and then I'm just allowing communication to flow of my own experience and whatnot. I'm not thinking like, what do I got to say? Like I will sometimes jot a few things like, oh, remember this. And but is this similar to your experience? Like, are you just so like in the flow? Like I know we're all different. We all like neurotypes and all this stuff. But like, do you want to talk about that a little bit or whatever you want to talk about, brother?
Yeah. I mean, the quick answer is absolutely yes. What I practice is opening that flow. What I feel I want to do is speak to the truth of the moment that's coming in now. And like I was saying earlier, my mind is filled with all kinds of memories of realizations. And so I still have those kind of like in a filing system. And if you ask a question, it's like, oh, remember that? You answered that one before. So it's still present. My mind is still kind of filled with stuff. But yeah, like even right now, I'm just like, oh, what should I say? Like there's a flow. I'm like, I don't know. This is what I'm kind of suggesting as a practice of living in truth. It's not that you learned all the truth and now you have to go speak it. Like, what is the truth right now? Right now, I'm speaking to my friend and I'm looking for words and I'm wanting to know, what should I go from here? What should I say? What part of this do I want to talk about? There's a process happening. And to speak truthfully about the process deepens me into the experience of that living truth. So there's often a flow. Whenever I'm doing satsang, that's what I hope to do, is empty myself of any ambition, any ideal, and just maybe have a couple notes on my pad that is kind of like guidelines. And then I'll speak to that concept and just let it come through. I often find myself in satsang, I'm like, okay, now I have to stop because I'll just keep going forever. Like I have to pause and let you guys reflect what you're hearing, because once I open that flow, because there's an infinity of understanding, it just keeps coming. And so there is certainly that pathway that is, I guess, what I'm intending to do. And it's also a misnomer because if anything, the me that would intend is getting out of the way. So Michael is not trying to let the flow go. Michael is trying to sleep or die.
He's swimming in the river, buddy. He's swimming in the river. Well, and that, I mean, it talks about like what we were talking about earlier. It's like I actually was really turned off by Wayne Dyer with the first book that I started reading from him. And I'm glad I returned to him because he's been such a beautiful guide to me in a lot of ways. But one of the things he said, I think it was in Living an Inspired Life, maybe. He talked about how we have to kill the ego, like we have to kill it. And I was like, I just don't think that's my path. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about the Christ letters is he talks so much about the importance of the ego that eventually, in transcending it will somewhat die a natural death, but it's not, but you certainly should never try to kill it because it actually will do more harm than good to your spiritual journey. But I really see it more as an integration process where, like, if you consider the ego as like, it's like the vehicle that allows us to express in this world, when it is really, you said in different words, like it's surrendered to that master and it does it like okay, do the dishes, sweep the courtyard, you know, do the laundry. Like you still got to chop wood and carry water, you know, and we do, you know, it's not helpful if we just become, you know, like slothful and it's, I think it's, you know, as much as some of those Eastern mystics are, you know, they're having such transcendent experiences, it's a burden on their community to have to like push food in their mouth because they no longer have an ego.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a big burden, you know.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I think that there's so much, yeah, like I love how you really like to peel back the curtains into in terms of what's going inside so that you can kind of get to know the Michael that is there witnessing the river, getting out of the way or playing in the river, whatever Michael is doing. It's like
Yeah.
it's a part of, it's an important character because if the truth is, man, if you weren't here, you know, it would leave a void. Like you have such a unique presence, you have such a unique laugh, you have such a unique expression of love that is authentically you. And this
Yeah.
is something that I think we don't talk enough about that's truly valuable in our society. Like we talk about like adding value, like creating and that's important, but presence itself and just being is of tremendous value. It's
Yeah.
of tremendous value. And we often don't consider ourselves because everywhere we go, we are. So we don't know if we're lighting up a room or bringing everyone down or it's like, oh, they're here again, you know? But that's literally the kind of effects that we're having just from our electromagnetic field when we walk into a space, right? So I love that about you, that you bridge those two worlds. And, you know, we have that in common. I love science. I love mathematics. I think there's a whole emerging new mathematics that's coming. I was listening to Robert Edward Grant talk about this, and I've also had this emerging, you know, mathematical insights, you know, into terms of, I call it the quantum infinitum theory of relativity. And whereas like in our comprehension of infinity is, we think it's like, oh, it's everything and all, it's infinity, but I see them as quantums of infinity. So I'm an infinitum, you are an infinitum, and I can simplify it to in mathematical terms to like two squared we says is four, but that four is actually an infinitum and is the byproduct of that squaring of the two, because it creates a square, and a square is a kind of circle, even though not every circle is a square, obviously, right? So there's no beginning and an end to a square. So it's a certain quantum expression of an infinitum.
Okay.
So it's like it's a dimensional understanding of infinitums, and that, you know, we're interacting with one another. I know it's funny because when I had my awakening, I started writing so much, and I called it a, instead of a science fiction, I called it a fiction science, because I was trying to share some of the revelations I was having. I called it the modern philosopher through storytelling, but I never published it because when I put it out there, like people were like, this is way over my head. These concepts are like, I don't understand. And they were still somewhat forming in my consciousness. But I'm saying this because I feel like it's so important, this conversation, we're able to articulate it in a whole other way because of science. So I've set like a huge gratitude for all the work that is done from these, like, you know, the giants of science that have really, you know, expanded our collective consciousness, right? We have AI now, which, you know, I think this is a collective expansion of our own consciousness. We're tapping into deeper awareness, and our ability to express in ways is changing once again in a very significant way.
Oh yeah, it's another big opening, another massive shift. It's an exponential growth for sure in this time. Yeah, I 100% agree. And there's something that, yeah, when you speak of the ego in the way that you did, one way that I've often thought about it is that the ego is along for the ride. I see it as sitting in the passenger seat, and it can still soak up the goodness that it wants. My core intention of being with you here today is to spread the truth, is be a vessel for that truth. The truth comes through me and it must radiate through me. It's like, I can't even say it's my intention. It's just what's happening.
Mhm.
And yet in that, the Michael is stoked to do it and feels joy and love about doing it.
Yes.
And you could say that's the ego aspect. It's the one that still derives an emotional experience
Mhm.
from what the let's call it the soul is doing. The soul just does what it does. It's like the tree goes towards the sun. It just does what it does. And the ego is kind of like what could either disrupt that soul's journey, or it could encourage it, or it could just be a witness on the way. And that's the way I see my relationship with the ego now, is that my work in a way is to harmonize my ego with the truth. If there's anything that I identify with, I want to identify with the attributes of God, with compassion, with truth, with love. If I'm going to have any ego, that's the kind of ego I want. But it has to still be kind of a reflection and an echo of the actual lived experience of it. If I just become somebody who tries to be compassionate, tries to be kind, tries to be truthful, but I'm doing it all from the mind space because I want to be like God, then I'm getting lost in the ego. I'm letting the ego take the driver's seat rather than them being in the passenger seat. But the ego is in the passenger seat with all the information. He's accumulated all the skills. He's got the glove box filled with maps. And when I'm like, where do I go now? He's like, oh, you should try it up there. Or actually, there's going to be traffic over there. So, but if I'm just driving with no ego whatsoever, then I can't really go anywhere. I don't even know how to drive a car. Like that's the thing, is the ego even knows how to drive. Like it's the thing that maintains itself. It's the structure that maintains knowledge and information so that it can be used and kind of penetrated by the soul and move through life with those understandings. And there's one other thing I'd love to say about that, because what we spoke of earlier about how a lot of deep spiritual truths are often really deeply misunderstood. Killing the ego is probably one of the biggest ones. And it's not the greatest vernacular to describe the process, because it does have this sense of like, I must go destroy that which is. It's there. And if you try to destroy what is, it's like trying to destroy energy. You put so much pressure on an infinite point of energy, it's just going to elude you. It's going to move and then explode somewhere else. You can't actually make it go away, but you can hold space for it to change form. And so when people say killing the ego, I understand it on one level, because that samadhi I referred to earlier is the process to achieve that experience of total universal consciousness is the same process as death. When we are on our deathbed and we're fighting for our life, I'm like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. It makes it so much harder to actually die. And we actually can hang around a lot longer because of that attachment. But if we just like, okay, it's my time, we get quieter, our breath slows, and we're like, and then our mind will say, but I never got to do this. I'm like, that's okay. You don't need it. But I never got to achieve that. That's okay. You don't need it. And all the things that you think you are, that you're holding on to, they start to die. They start to fall away forever. And so that's why I think the process is referred to that way, as killing the ego. But it's probably better to say, allow it to die. Yeah. And even then, what happens is if you remain in a body, you will form a new one. That's why that's how I see the rebirth. That's how I see like going through the eye of the needle. You have to go into that tiny little opening where all your falsehoods cannot fit, because falsehoods exist because of opposition. If it's false, it has two contradicting pieces, which creates space, and space cannot go through that infinite point. You need to bring it into one where your ideas of I am Michael and I'm 6 feet tall, but I'm also a soul that is nothing and no one. How can they like, you have to dissolve the identity of what you think you are, so you can go as the only thing that you are through that narrow opening. And then you burst out the other side, this free being of falsehood. So the ego of falsehood, the ego that which sees things as separate and good and bad and this and that and in and out, that ego dies. But then you have the ego of these things all appear to be separate, and I can treat a tree different than I can treat a guitar. And that's all good, but I know they're the same energy. The knowledge of knowing them as one can exist at the same time of me interacting with them differently. And that's when the ego of separation, the ego of illusion, the ego of scarcity, the ego of lack, that dies. You allow it to die through other practice. If you do practices, the ego will literally start to die. And if you allow it to go, if you release your grasp, it will fade into the distance, and then you'll be one with the open field. And then from being one with the open field, you feel this infinite light, this infinite love that then compels you to go, well, what do I do with this? And then the first desire comes back online. Share it, be it, go forth and multiply. It's a different interpretation of that scripture, but that's what
I think
doing.
that's a very important, wow. So, I don't want to interrupt your flow. It's beautiful.
No, it's all good, man. But the ego death is grossly misunderstood. And that's why, and I see the pendulum swinging in the spiritual communities online. It's like, oh, it's always about killing the ego. Well, it's not about killing the ego. You got to make friends with the ego. I'm like, no, it's not that either. There's a middle ground, If somebody is hurt or disturbed by one of the teachings, they'll go to its opposite. And then they'll be like, oh, back in the day, it was all about inquiry, all about going into the mind, all about asking questions. And now our generation of what I'm seeing is it's all about the heart. Get out of the mind, leave the mind behind. And I'm like, the mind is the structure that allows you to continue in this love. If you don't train the mind to be a reflection of truth, you're lost again. You'll go into the heart. And then the moment something scary happens, you're immersed in fear. And a demon shows up and you have no idea what it is. But then if you have the mind, you go, I've learned from my previous experiences that a demon is just an expression of fear consciousness in my own psyche. So, hello, demon, come on in, let's have tea. And then you're back in truth again. So this pendulum swinging of from one teaching to another is also kind of missing the mark. We have to be like, it's not all about the mind. Everything is mind. Everything is a projection of the mind of God. That's where that comes from. And self-inquiry and asking questions to get to the deeper truth is a super powerful tool. But without the heart, it's meaningless because you'll just become an automaton who has information similar to AI. But if you go only into the heart and only feel and never actually question why you feel what you feel, you'll never understand your programming, you'll never understand your conditioning, and you'll never transcend it. So it's important for you to have both the mind and the heart. And so this is another thing that I feel is really important to get out into the airwaves is this tendency we have as beings to polarize into one side or the other. It's either all mind or it's all heart, or it's kill the ego or make friends with the ego. The answer is the reconciliation between the two. Make friends with the ego in the sense that you don't try to murder it. So then it can actually show itself to you and you see it as this loving child that displays its faults to you so you can love and forgive those faults. And then the child grows and transforms into the adult it's supposed to be as somebody that knows itself fully and can act from a true space, still with the innocence and love of a child, with the openness. So it's just something that that I find myself very passionately speaking about, because there's so many teachings in the spiritual, especially online world, that are grossly misunderstood and forget the nuance of the gray area of the reconciliation of two opposing points. So anytime I hear somebody say it's this, I'm like, well, it's also that. And if they say it's not this, I'm like, yes, it is. Like, if anybody says it's one way, you can assume that it's also not.
Well, that's pointing to the paradox again, and that the truth is really always been my guiding light as well. It's always what's the truth, and that it allows that curiosity to lead you, right? Because otherwise, if you take on these beliefs, even if they are high spiritual truths, well, from a limited human perspective, they can have consequences in our lives that are not necessarily beneficial to you at this point in the journey. It's like, all the masters did not prescribe formula to, a set form of prayer or meditation. Like what you mentioned, Vipassana. The problem I found with Vipassana is there is the community that kind of built around it from that tradition. It's taken on a lot of dogma and in the sense that they tell you what is the truth. And I my direct experiences were, like you were saying, it's like, okay, well, it's not just that. Like, you have to look at this. And Buddha didn't just tell everyone to do Vipassana, insight meditation. Whoever came to him, he would meet them where they were, and he would operate from a place of truth, and probably maybe tell someone to go sweep the courtyard and tell another person sit next to me and just breathe for 10 days. and like whatever was right for that individual, because they were attuned to that intelligent, loving field like you're talking about, and that like mind and heart, you can understand, is like those are the two main impulses or qualities of the universal consciousness. It's intelligence and love. And I like to think of this thought experiment where it's a contemplation, probably more than a thought experiment, but it's like it gives me understanding on why people do what they do, especially when I consider the whole of of the human species. Like, well, intelligence without love is cold and calculated. It can create weapons that destroy the whole world. Like we have atom bombs still on our planet. It's the craziest thing, right? Or it could use that information and new knowledge to power the world. And in the same vein, love without intelligence is naive. It is lacking, like you said, that structure. It's so wishy-washy. It's non-committal. Like the harmonious marriage of both of those within our embodiment practice it's so essential. And the truth can be found in the meeting of those two things, right? If you just say everything is love and light, like people like to say, well, it's like, well, but what about those homeless people over there and the children that are being killed over there? And it's like the problem of evil is real. So, okay, well, and then on the from the materialistic dogma side of you, that many, they call themselves scientists, but to me they're materialists. They say, like they question, they have problems with anything that can't be measured, doesn't exist. So you can't measure the consciousness in a dog, so you're just like, the dog has no consciousness. Humans are the only ones. And I'll go so extreme to say I'm the only one who has it, because I'm the only one who can know for sure that I have consciousness. It's like, like that's like, so anyways, you get what I'm saying, right? The just, and I feel like there is this awakening, and that's why these conversations and our voices are so important, because the truth is, we might have heard these things in different iterations. It's like I heard Master Ko, who works with Tony Robbins, talk about, how everyone says Buddha said life is suffering. Buddha did not say life is suffering. Buddha said there is suffering in life. What an all-important distinction to have, right? If you believe life is suffering, well, of course you want to get out of here. Like, you don't even want to be life. You don't want to exist. You just want to be nothing. But if you understand that there's suffering in life, and then his eightfold path is that you can transcend that suffering, well, then, okay, all of a sudden, like, there's a point to this, like, right? So, I mean, these are some of where these become memes in our society, right? And, it was Wayne Dyer who pointed out that a meme is a mind virus. So if you think that, everyone else is an illusion and I'm the only one who hear it, or I'm living in a simulation. I hear a lot of people talking about that I'm in some teenager's simulation of reality. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, how is that even like like a thing? But I understand what they're pointing at, but because they don't have that connection to a deeper sense of truth, and they haven't met those worlds and gone into that paradoxical thing to see what's true themselves, and they're getting their information, there's dangerous implications to that, right?
Yeah. So much there. Actually, I want to point out this one, because that's another one that I feel, I actually don't know the quote directly, so I'm going to take your word for it, that the intention was to say that there's suffering in life. But I'll tell you how I always interpreted that. Well, I would say that the suffering that he's alluding to is absolute. It's the suffering of separation, really, the suffering of not knowing what is true. And on top of that, I would say a more broad view of it is that relative to the absolute, human incarnation is suffering. So what I mean is that if you are not in a human body and you are just the infinite field of consciousness, not taking any particular form, but you are the experience of all that is, that totality, that bliss, that wholeness is the pinnacle of experience. And then in densifying your vibration to come into form, relative to that vibrationless state, vibration is suffering. And I'll speak to my own experience in this, whereas there's times where, especially when I wake up in the morning, where I'm coming out of that dreamless sleep and there's no mind online. I'm looking around my room and I'm seeing everything, but I'm not naming things. I'm not understanding. I'm not thinking about what my day is or what the day before was. I'm just being totally. And then all of a sudden my mind comes online, like almost like really suddenly. And it's like I can feel this energetic, psychic densifying. And even though the content of my mind is beautiful, like I get to go downstairs and have tea, and I get to see Charlie and Siddharth, whom I love dearly. I get to do the work that I love, all these beautiful things. But that first transition from emptiness to form is like a fall from grace. It's like, but after I adapt just for like 3 seconds, I'm like, oh, okay. I love this body. I love my life. And once there's an adjustment, I wouldn't say it's like equally as perfect or beautiful. Words do not do justice here, because there's always this like longing to return. There's always this subtle like, oh, I want to go eat the tasty thing so I can feel, I want to go make love so I can feel like we're always trying to get back there. But that's beautiful too. Like there's nothing wrong with the longing. There's nothing wrong with wanting to go back to that stillness, that total openness, that total spaciousness. So for me, it's like, I think relative to the perfection, life in form is suffering. But like anything else, the first time, like let's say you're doing some sort of conditioning with your body, let's say you're doing squats, and the first couple of times you do squats, it really hurts your legs and you suffer. But then your muscles adapt, you get a little stronger, and you get familiar with the sensation. And then moving your body in that way is actually pleasurable. So relatively speaking, when you first have never done a squat, doing a squat is suffering, but you adapt and you harmonize with that vibration in a way that now it's actually pleasurable to be in it. So life relative to the absolute is suffering. And the transition from that to that is a suffering experience, is what would be considered an unpleasant experience. But when you land here and you work with what's here and you harmonize with what's here, then there's infinite joy and pleasure and satisfaction. And so it's just a different understanding of that phrasing, because I think a lot of people that sign up for Buddhism misunderstand that, and they're trying to like leave this world. They're trying to leave the earth. But what they're really trying to leave is the illusion of the separate self, the illusion of scarcity. When we leave the illusion of separate self and scarcity, we remain in body. And then we actually start emanating our frequency in such a way that this place transforms into a reflected version of heaven. You spoke earlier about heaven being a state of mind. I would take it even further to say that, one of the things that I wrote down in this book that came through me at night is heaven is the only place and God is the only being. And so when I look around here, I can go into a state of being that feels heaven-like. But if you think of the definition of heaven, this is the way I understood it as a kid, is a place you go where all your wishes and all your desires are met. That's what we got here. But what we desire here is fear. We desire fear and separation and lack. We're all choosing that as a collective consciousness. We are choosing the experience of being separate. We are choosing the experience of having lack. We are choosing the experience of pain and discomfort. We're all choosing that as a collective. And the heaven we live in goes, okay, here you go. So we're already in heaven. And everything that's happening on the planet that is absolutely atrocious, that's a response to us choosing it as a collective consciousness. Our collective at this point in time is learning what it is to be in total separation and seeing the consequences of it. And we are in the infinite field of heaven saying, I want to know what that is like. And that's why we have it. So even though the heaven state of total satisfaction and total completion is a consciousness state, the place of heaven is the place where you get everything you choose. everything you choose. And right now, because of our fear and because of our ignorance, we are choosing more fear, more ignorance, more separation, and more suffering. So we're already in heaven. I look out my window now and this is obviously heaven. But to be in a different place, like somewhere in the Middle East right now, you look around, you do not see heaven. But what you see is a reflection of humanity's choice to separate from one another. We are choosing that. So that we're still in heaven. We never left heaven. We can't ever leave heaven. And we can do with it as we will. So it's another important distinction that I just feel it's good to know.
Yeah, well, I think it points back to what you were saying earlier in the conversation about like true liberation, like because love itself as the universal power, the creative power that it is, does give us the freedom of choice. Because if it constrained us and gave us rules, like how it's painted in the Old Testament is like, okay, well, here's the Garden of Eden. You can do whatever you want, but don't do that, or else, But you can do whatever you want, but don't do that. It's like, well, what are you gonna do, right? So, I think this is really important. I also see the other side of the coin, Michael, and I don't think these are divergent views, because I think what you said, kind of in between what you were talking about, is really important. And looking at this as a journey, and I think there will be a time. I think the overall intention is as the universal really fills all the form on earth, because we got to remember, like, as long as there's like one of us who is a raw nerve who is still in pain and suffering on the planet, because we are all interconnected through the body of Mother Earth. Like, to me, I don't know if I mentioned in this conversation, but I talk a lot about my spirit name is Ondakiin. It means keeper of the land. So it talks of stewardship. And in many Indigenous circles that have been, this conversation that we are the land is very important. So our body is of the mother. And if we think of that just practically, we eat food that grows our cells. Like, we are the expressions of the land.
Yeah.
So part of our intentionality here is the more that we bring a state of heaven into this form and into the land, it eventually everything will be infused with that level of divine consciousness. And then that concept of suffering that you're talking about, I think that it will dissolve in the light of truth entirely.
Right.
So it's like we're on that journey. It's not, and I this is one thing I haven't heard anyone else talk about this, but this is one of the things I appreciate very much, and I think it's a testament to love itself. In the letters, Christ talks about how it is no easy feat for him to come and lower his dimensional frequency to return to earth to communicate this profound truth with us, because he is literally coming from a place of that pure love to see the turmoil on earth. And to lower into the grosser vibrations of earth is not an easy undertaking. And so when I think of that, he did appear to me in my early 20s after that meditation experience I described. Like, he was just pure light. But to understand that it's not just simple for him to just snap his fingers, like, oh, I'm gonna go hang out with Nathaniel for an afternoon and like say hey, and like I'm back in Dodge, playing cards with Muhammad or something, in the afternoon, like that actually is it demonstrates this profound compassion and divine love that is like, it's like all these ascended masters, old souls are coming on the planet to conspire for the expansion and evolution of human consciousness. Like, it is a difficult thing to do, to come into a world where there's still wars, where the oneness has not found itself yet in between the paradox of war and peace. Like, it hasn't found that, because we all have to deal with our own inner war, that conflicts that you talked about. So to me, like, I'm so grateful for that knowing that, because if it was just a matter of, okay, I just need to stop the incarnation cycle, get to nirvana, and I'm good. Like, it would be that wouldn't be really love. It would be somewhat of a degraded version of love.
And one aspect of reality would be considered undesirable or unpleasant or not worthy, not like it should be. Like, there's a bad part of creation. For us to view it that way, we would have to agree that there's a bad part of creation that we need to escape. And every single part of creation, even the worst hell you can imagine, is part of it. Because if we live in an infinity, you need to have infinite positive numbers and infinite negative numbers. If you want infinite positive numbers, you have to have infinite negative numbers. You can't have one without the other. Yeah. So there's this beauty and reverence for the absolutely horrific, dark and imbalance and chaos that exists in the infinite cosmos, because without its sacrifice to be that darkness, we cannot know what it is to know the light. So it's really important to grasp that idea that there's no aspect of creation that is wrong. And yet we can experience relative wrong to inform us what brings about more understanding. Like it's, if your ambition is to feel healthy in your body, then relatively speaking, it would be wrong to drink gasoline. Like, really extreme
Good example.
So yeah. So that's the idea, is that everything that we consider right and wrong is just, does it work? Does it encourage your ambition? Does it help your choice, or does it not? And that's as far as right and wrong goes. And if we look at any part of creation, it's like, that's inherently bad and we need to get rid of that. That mentality is the very thing that perpetuates the thing you're trying to get rid of. If you are in the mentality that we have to squash out the evil, that thought is an evil thought. And that will create and sustain more of what you call evil. But if you see evil as a deviation from truth, as a deviation from understanding, as a deviation from awareness and love, then you approach evil with a different intention. And rather than trying to kill your enemy, you do what you can to remove them from the power they have, that they are wielding incorrectly. Like, say, if your enemy is somebody going around with a gun, go in and take the gun from them, stop them, and then maybe have some people around to make sure that he doesn't hurt anybody else, and sit with him and say, we love you. We're here for you. We're here to help. What got you to the point that you felt it was okay to kill other beings? You must be really hurt. Are you okay? And it doesn't matter how far gone that person is, far gone as if there's a too far gone. We remain with them. We work with them. We devote ourselves. You know, what's that Jesus quote about the sheep? Like, you don't go after the ones that are there. You go after the one that left the flock. So the one that's furthest from the truth is the one that deserves all of your attention and all of your love. And that's one of the most powerful teachings there is. A lot of people, especially the people that you and I have known, might look at this world and want to stop the Schwabs or the Gateses or whoever is at those positions of power that they think are doing wrong. The Trudeaus, the Bidens, the Trumps, whoever. Those people need our love more than anybody on this planet, man. They're the ones that are screaming and crying for guidance and forgiveness. And that's where I would want to put my energy.
I totally agree with you. I've been saying this, in conversations with people for a long time, that was one of the things that I think where the collective went wrong with all that happened with lockdowns and all this stuff. There was a lot of of just collective judgment and criticism towards some of these seemingly bad actors, and some of them are like literally bad actors. And
That's your choice.
and
thank you for your role.
Yeah, exactly. And the other, expansive way of looking at this is their role in this has caused the spur of an awakening that we've never seen. And it definitely woke up a lot of people. What I find funny is, and I know you and I have probably met some of the similar people. I think there's a level of awareness where you think that you're awake because you know about these agendas. And they literally, I've met people that have come up to me like, "Are you awake?" And I'm like, "Well, I think I know what you mean, and I don't think you know what you're talking about."
Are you awake?
Yeah, I'm awakening every moment I can. Yeah. So it's, seeing it as this journey, I think, is so valuable. And it's what gives us relationships too, right? Because if we could just flip a switch and everyone just comes into their full soulful self, what then happens to purpose? That's the juxtaposition that I think you mentioned the Big Bang earlier. One of the things he says about the Big Bang is it came to a high point of consciousness where the mother's impulse is to bond and reject. So there's this holding aspect of the mother, and that so it's like magnets, right? There's the push and the pull, and then the father's will is like, I want to go explore, I want to go on an adventure. So you can imagine the tension that builds between those two in an eternal context. you know, it got to such a point where it was riven and very juxtaposed to one another. It's like the father's like, I'm going out, I'm going, I gotta get out, you know, and it goes, and then that led to like a very, not that there was this master plan for creation, but like just utter chaos in terms of the expression of the electromagnetic drive, and probably took eons to like start assembling into the formed nature and all the beautiful expressions that we see. So on like one part you say like there's suffering, that physical creation. I think that it largely, I think that a good portion of that focus is within the species of humanity itself. And we can be very human centric, because if I look at like, you know, a parrot eating a mango off a tree, I don't think they're experiencing a whole lot of suffering. They're just so in the embodiment of that pure essence. Like a bumblebee in the flowers, like, man, I've been working all day. I don't think that's their experience. But for humans, because we have this very unique role as the chrysalis of enlightened beings that can emerge and reach the full mastery of elemental consciousness, we have this different kind of, you know, process that we need to go through, and I think suffering is a big part of it. It is part of that. So that's my perception. I could be totally wrong about that. Maybe the bumblebee is needs a union worker. In fact, you can talk to our sponsors, JT's raw kombucha. You are also welcome to be one of our sponsors, JT.
I would say that, like, yeah, it's also another exploration of vocabulary and semantics, because I would, for my own self, equate suffering to the state of forgetting, to the state of not knowing, to the state of psychological fear. Whereas I've experienced moments of physical pain that I did not suffer in. I feel still to this day that I don't suffer anymore. I have lots of discomfort and pain and challenge, but I don't equate it to suffering, because what I suffered when I was younger was the psychological torment of the fear of not knowing. And that was what I would equate to suffering. Like like if a friend was mad at me, I would suffer because I need to get my friend back. I can't believe he's mad at me. This sucks so bad. I'm less than now. I'm not a full human being anymore. So that belief and that not knowing was suffering. But now if a friend is mad at me, I'm like, oh, that's kind of sad. I'm sad, but I'm not suffering from the sadness. It's just sadness is happening, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Whereas to look at like the parrot who eats a mango, they're not suffering the way humans suffer. They don't have the psychological torment. Even like a gazelle that's getting eaten by a lion. Eventually, if you watch that, you'll notice that at one point, the gazelle, after realizing that it's not going to escape, just goes, all right, eat me.
Yeah.
And it just surrenders totally.
Surrenders, yeah.
So that doesn't have the cycle. It has the adrenaline to like get out. But once it realizes there's no hope, it accepts its fate. And, you know, this is my conjecture. I'm speaking for the consciousness of something I haven't inhabited, but that's my,
you can see it though in the physiological response.
Yeah.
It is witnessable. Yeah, for sure.
But what I'd say in the context of the parrot eating the mango is that at some point there's a subtle discomfort that compels the parrot to eat. So that's part of life.
Yeah.
There's this, oh, I need something. Even when the parrot sees another parrot that is attractive, that arising of sexual energy is like, oh, I need to go to her. Like there's this, I got to do something about this feeling. This feeling needs to be satisfied. So relatively speaking, you could say that that push and pull that is present in form is not present in the formless. It's one complete and total whole. Even angelic beings being in the knowing of God and all the connection, they feel the compulsion when they see Earth to go and help, because they're like, oh, there's so much suffering down there. I've got to go and do something with it. They're not thinking like, I'm suffering so bad because Earth is suffering. They're just thinking, I can feel the vibrations of chaos emanating from that planet. So I'm compelled to go towards it the same way a parrot is compelled to go towards a shiny mango. It's like, oh, there's something over there that I'm attracted to. And that feeling of attraction in some way is akin to discomfort, but you can also really enjoy it too. So it's, again, it's paradoxical. It's both and. It's beautiful to feel desire, and it's also suffering to feel desire. And the complete desireless state of total completion that is felt in the absolute, that's the place is not a good word, state of mind, state of being, state of consciousness, where there's no such thing as suffering, because there's no push and pull. There's no discomfort that compels one to do. There is only that which is, and it needs nothing, and it needs to go nowhere or expand nowhere. It's just what is. So there's a state of consciousness that we all can inhabit, so to speak, where there's total completion. And then we can know that as the state of no suffering. But then when we come back into the mental plane, the separateness, then we can be like, okay, there's a variety of suffering here. There's a spectrum of suffering, and we can get it to the point where the spectrum of suffering, we're on one side of that spectrum. So the intensity of suffering is so minute that we don't even consider it to be suffering. We can see, I'm hungry and this is good. I'm horny and this is good. Oh, my leg hurts and I need to move it. Like there's an understanding that it's not bad. But the true suffering that I think the Buddha was referring to was the mental suffering, the psychological torment of forgetting what is true now. If you can drink something from the river and it makes you sick, you could have the psychological suffering of like, oh shit, I'm going to die now. And my whole life is ruined, and I'm going to get sick and I don't want to feel pain. Please don't bring me any pain. That resistance to pain is the suffering. But if you're like, oh, I drank something wrong, I'm going to learn from this. Don't drink from this river again. And then you carry on. And when the pain comes, you're like, pain is pain. Thank you, teacher, for showing me. So you could call that pain suffering, or you could just call it discomfort. And I think that shows up in a myriad of different ways in consciousness. But what we can be free from, absolutely, on our journey from here on out, is the pain of psychological torment of forgetting who and what is real. That is what the Buddha was teaching. We can be liberated from the illusion of separation and scarcity and sit in the knowing of who and what we are. And then when discomfort comes, we revere it. We thank it. We say, thank you, God, for showing up in the form of pain so I can learn what's good for me. And that's a totally different experience.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I appreciate everything you articulated there, Michael. Really some great illustrations. And, it reminds me of the root etymology of the word desire, because a lot of what you said, like, could be seen as discomfort, like I'm hungry, I'm horny, whatever. The root word of desire means of the Father. So when there's that recognition that whatever I want is already in the existence of infinity itself, I can just have it, then it removes that barrier. And also, like, it's part of that mutual reciprocation of communication and needs, because our creator knows that creation has needs and it fulfills them, but it's that psychological resistance that creates the barrier between our ability, the delay, and that's what causes the suffering, right? And I also I noticed that you had no qualms with assuming the perspective of an angelic being in contrast to the gazelle. So
I relate more to an angel than I do to a gazelle.
It's funny. There was a man that I worked with and he just told me this one day, and I feel moved to say it. He was an interesting guy. I worked at the Indigenous Health Access Center that I worked, and he came to me one day. He was the maintenance man of the whole place, and he came to me and said, I don't even remember the context, but he says, when a lion eats a species like that, it comes with all of its consciousness, and it's like it. He came up to me and he said, you know what it says to the being? And I was like, I don't know. He says, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. What a different perception, because the way that nature documentaries are portrayed, like, and the evolution is portrayed as that it is this survival, this battle, this and when you see, of course, the lion or the bear or whatever has that feeling, because this is its nourishment. So there is a reciprocation of love, like
so much love.
I think that's
I 100% agree. This idea that it's like nature is inherently evil or something like that is so far from the truth. And I feel like that's the only way to do it. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but I just finished the other half of an essay where I spoke about the concept of how we relate to animals and how we eat them. And I proposed that the way to a true harmony on this planet when it comes to our relationship to animals is taking the next step into reverence, which is what the Indigenous people would teach. They have so much, they pray and bow down to the animals they kill. And they often do rituals that assure there's some sort of agreement. Like the example that I remember is that, I don't know what tribe it was, but one of the rituals would be that they would do some form of dance, some form of like, what's the word, like pantomime, to like initiate the hunt around a fire, and they would do chants and stuff like that. And then the kind of resident shaman would go into some sort of trance state and be asked to be shown where they can find some nourishment. And then the shaman would say, okay, well, the shaman would just lead the way, like, we're going this way. And they would walk a couple miles northeast or something like that. And then they'd find a herd of caribou. And because the shaman was shown that through a vision, and the caribou showed up in the vision, then that was affirmation to them that the caribou are willing to lay down their lives. But if they're just willy-nilly going out in the wilderness and killing whoever they want without thinking, then they are not having an energetic, loving agreement with the animals that are there to offer themselves. And so I think that, I don't eat animals, but I'm also not somebody that opposes the eating of animals. Absolutely. I think there's a time and a place, and especially during our evolution, there's a point at which other nourishment is simply not available. So that's our only option. So when the Bible says we have dominion over animals, another thing that people misinterpret, essentially it means as the conscious, aware beings on this planet that we are, the ones that can use wisdom and choice, we get to kind of balance out the system here. We're kind of the leaders of the space. That doesn't mean that animals are here for us to like be subservient to us. It's that if there's a decision to be made that's hard, we are the ones that make that decision. But that decision doesn't mean wipe out whatever animals you want just because you like the taste of their flesh. It means if you are hungry and the human race is dying and the only option is animals, then you're the ones that get to make that hard decision, because you're the conscious ones that are closer to the awareness of what is. So you don't have the dominion in the sense that you have the right or you have the entitlement. You have the responsibility of enacting that relationship in an honest and reverent and responsible way for the collective. If you are eating the caribou to only eat the caribou, then you're not serving the caribou. But another thing about Indigenous tribes that I absolutely adore is that they'll work with a tribe of caribou for their entire life. Like they'll know where the herd is. They'll track the herd. And if they notice that the herd is getting small and they're overpopulating, they'll forbid their own tribe from having more children for a generation or two.
Okay.
Because if we don't like call our own species, then we're going to create imbalance in the ecosystem here. So the same way a caribou would offer its life to a person, the person would choose not to proliferate at an exponential rate, because they realize that they are now getting rid of the herd there. And in the future, you could say it's still purely selfish and utilitarian, that in 3 generations time, we're not going to have any caribou left, so we're not going to kill them all. But I think it's more about the mentality of balancing the ecosystem, doing what's necessary rather than doing what they want as individuals.
I think too, there's a different paradigm of consciousness where there is a recognition. Like, I think a lot of it is in our language. I had the privilege really to teach an Indigenous language class last winter, and I mean, it's not that I've mastered any particular Indigenous languages. I have some general awareness, and I know some structure and words and things, and I can introduce myself and those things. However, I've just been fascinated by language in and of itself, in its whole. And one of the teachers that I've met in my path, talked about how language structures are reality. And like in Lakota, this was Dr. Martin Brokenleg. He said, in Lakota, they have us understand there was no time in the way that we talk about it in European languages, right? They understand that there is only this present moment. And in the similar vein, my understanding as a living, complete language, like Anishinaabe-Moan, for example, is when you talk, it's inverse to English. So whereas English is noun based, it's 80-20 noun to verb. Anishinaabe-Moan is 80-20 verb to noun. So it's very relational in its communication. It's not an oratory language in the sense that there was one speaker, like a king or a queen, who talked to the masses. It's very one-to-one, very like circle-based, quieter language, softer. And so it would be like akin to saying, and this wouldn't really make sense in English because of the way we use, because we're so, and I've been now like looking at books that my daughter's reading, like alphabets. It's all nouns, like A is for apple.
Right.
You know, well, so you're not really talking about the relationship with an apple.
Yeah.
So if I were to say like, I'm going to go to the beach in English, you understand, I'm a separate thing, and I'm going to go and walk to the beach, and I'm going to read a book, and that's all, very, particular. But in Anishinaabe Moen or Cree or these languages that have similar root family, my understanding, and I've had this confirmed by many of the students in the class and other elders, is you would say something akin to, I'm going to go become the beach, because there is understanding that there's no separation between environment and us. So in going, and so I bet that though the wisdom in those tribes who like followed whether it was the bison or the antelope or whatever, they would understand that they are us, and that we take turns. You're becoming the caribou, right? There is no separation and no difference, and that if they totally like, because there's that love and care for the whole collective of the community, if they destroy an aspect of themselves, they will also face that similar fate.
Exactly. Beautiful, man.
Hey man, we're coming up to top of 3 hours. This is definitely our longest podcast, and I have a feeling you and I could like definitely go longer than that. And I'm so grateful for you, Michael. I know there's people listening to this wondering, they probably skip right to the end. How do I connect with this guy and do some of this inner awakening process? And so how can people find you, and what are you up to right now?
Well, the simplest answer to that is furtherliberation.com. That basically displays all that I'm doing. And I'm on Instagram, but I'm going to be more active on that. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be putting myself out there more. There's going to be more Instagram. There's a bit on YouTube, but yeah, if you want to connect to me, furtherliberation.com.
Perfect.
Is the way to go.
And we'll have that all in our contact information. And I understand you have like a sanctuary space now too. Are you doing like workshops and things there as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're in the Comox Valley and you're interested in many different gatherings that are rooted in truth and love, and that's our intention here, is to make this sanctuary a place for truth and love to thrive. You can get in contact again through furtherliberation.com, and that can lead you to our other website, which is about this sanctuary, called unitysanctuary.ca. And so, just this morning, Siddharth started an 8-week yoga program. So I don't know if you can notice.
Amazing.
Can you see the orange on my forehead?
Yep. Yeah. I figured it was something from. Yeah.
So I started my day with yoga, and one of the things that we did was to, I can't remember the word, tulum or tukum or something like that. We had to go to the altar and light a candle and then put on the tukum. Yeah. And so Siddharth's hosting yoga here. I'm doing monthly satsangs now. When you were here, I was doing them every week.
Okay.
There's just so much happening that once a month for me,
and
it works.
What is a satsang for those people who not know what that is?
Well, it's made from two different words: sat, which is basically truth, and sangha is a gathering or a community. So it's a gathering in truth. And the traditional format is that a teacher is gathered around and gives a discourse, a talk, whatever you want to call it. And then there's questions to the teacher. And as you can probably remember, for the first year and a half that I did it, I didn't necessarily take that traditional approach. I was kind of getting my sea legs in a sense. Mm-hmm. So I was finding out how I want to do it. I didn't even call it a satsang when I started, but other people did. So I just went with it. And in its root name, a gathering in truth, that was always the intention. But so I didn't follow the original format. But now I am a little bit more. What I used to do, is you probably remember, is that I would speak a little bit in the beginning, but then it would open up to a group discussion where everybody's free to chime in and share their perspectives, which was really important. And I felt it really established a strong community here because it gave people the opportunity to see that the truth flows through them as well. Mm-hmm. I'm just kind of the anchor in the space, Whereas now I'm offering myself the opportunity to really step into the teacher role, because as you can tell, I can speak a lot, I can share a lot. And I think that's where I thrive the most, is where I'm asked direct questions. So there's still a little bit of communication within the circle, but it comes back to me more, and it's more about rerouting us back to the absolute truth. So if something's brought up that has a certain context, we say, how do we see the truth in that? And we explore it together. So that I'm doing, once every month. We have a monthly potluck as well. We've been doing that for 7 months now. And this is just the very simplest form of coming together in community.
That's wonderful.
So if there's other opportunities here. We do a monthly kirtan. So we have a chanting circle coming up on November 5th. So if you want to chant and sing to the Lord,
beautiful,
this is a place to do it.
That's wonderful. We were admiring your website. We noticed that acronym that we love to use in our work too. Heaven on Mother Earth is so important, you know.
Thank you for that.
And it belongs to all of us, right? It's because it's our work of co-creation. So we love seeing that.
Your name, because we give you a shout out.
Oh, I didn't see that actually. Oh, interesting. Oh, okay. Well, hey.
I don't know if we put you and Julia. I think I was under the assumption that you were the one who coined it. So I said our dear friend Nathaniel Parant.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Well, you know what? It came to me as many things do, like other acronyms. That's just one of my gifts. It's for the shared collective.
Such a powerful one, man. Our
home is
heaven on Mother Earth.
I've expanded it a little bit. I say I still use heaven on Mother Earth because people are related to it, but I like to think of it as heaven omni Mother Earth. Omni, because it's ever present. Omni means ever present, like
omnipotent and omniscient.
Yeah, it's the root of that, because it's not just about on the surface, because we have to think about our interior dwellers and all the beings that Earth is connected to, right?
I love that.
Yeah. And I also wanted to share, Michael, because you mentioned the IG, and I want to tell you about what I think is going to be in our evolving species on the internet, the OG of all time, and that's school. SKOOL. It is a place of true, authentic community building. I think you would resonate and find authentic relationships like you've never found online before. I absolutely love building on school, a community, but also integrating with all these other beautiful communities that have formed. There's no ads. It's all authentic communication, and the whole system is gamified. And the way they've structured their affiliate system, like I'm going to send you a link to Schoolers and to our link. And if you start a community, there's two levels. There's a hobby and a professional. The hobby is $9 a month. The professional is $99. And so school itself has a 40% commission affiliate system built in. So some people can make a whole career just by, helping other people get their communities up on the ground, off the ground. But what I love about that is that this concept of all boats rise together, and it's this whole other paradigm online that I've never found. I've never liked being on social media. I just can't stand going on there and ad walls and stuff like this. And I would share like heartfelt things about becoming a new father or whatnot. And I have like maybe, I don't know, I've never really been online that much, but I probably have about 600 or 700 people on Facebook. I would post things, and I would get like maybe 3 or 4 likes and maybe like one comment, if that, sometimes. So I know that either people aren't seeing it because there's ad walls. My algorithm is not optimized or whatever. But like the connection wasn't there, and I have found I see myself as an informal ambassador for School Ready because the mission is so strong, and it's a way that people are making a whole livelihood that is allowing people to thrive doing their passions and connecting with authentic people. I really love it so much. And so I want to invite you onto the platform, because I think with your heart-centered mission, what you're doing with Further Liberation, with your retreat center, it's Unity.
Sanctuary.
Unity Sanctuary. I feel like it's a place, a hub where you can feel connected to an international community, and I'm using it as a place to connect and build conscious bridges between communities like yours. So I strongly encourage you to check it out, and to our viewers listening too, we'll have those links in our description. It helps us for everyone that participates, because it's not just about money, and it's not just about connecting online. It's really about igniting one another, because when you've lit your candle, Michael, you can see your passion for truth. You've done this work. Now you're lighting other people's candles, and when we come into authentic environments, we're we're blessing the world in ways I think we don't even know. I think that the era of love and peace is really one loving thought at a time. So on that note, I'd love to ask you this one last question that I love as an experiment. If you had a megaphone that you could talk to the whole world and everyone could listen all at once to one thing, what would you say to everyone?
I've asked myself this question many times. This is what I ask myself when I make a video for Instagram or YouTube. I notice that my brain says, how can I reach people, or how can I get views? And I'm like, no. What would I say if the whole world was listening? Oh, man. I mean, that's when my heart opens up. I want to say I love you.
That's enough.
I want everyone to know that they are loved,
beautiful.
and not that they are loved as if it's an action that can be placed upon them, but they are love. Like what they're made of is love. All things are made of, and it's already whole and complete. We're already here. We already have everything we need. It only needs to be revealed.
Yeah.
And since I'm the one saying it, I'm here for you on that journey. And if you want assistance or guidance or just a friend, reach out, because we're all in this together, and because we literally are. We can't not be. The fact that we're all one literally means that we're all connected. We're all interdependent. And you said something earlier, like even if there was one person left on the planet that was like a raw nerve, then there's still more to be done, because there's still more to be reconciled. There's still more to be brought back to complete and total understanding and oneness and love. And so it's like the Bodhisattva path. The Bodhisattva comes back to earth, or descends from nirvana to show others the way, to remind them and show them what's real, so they can too achieve that understanding. And I think that it's kind of like our innate duty, not like somebody's telling us, but on some level it is, that once we really tune into the truth, it just becomes the natural compulsion to go and get everybody else on board. And so I'm here for it. And I feel like, I guess if I also were to speak to the world, I want to say that's the only way. And again, I recognize the contradiction in what I said earlier. Let me put it to you this way. If your desire is to have a peaceful, loving world, a peaceful, loving life, then truth and love are the only way. If you're not devoted to truth and love and God and freedom and heaven, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same with different words. If that's not your ambition, if that ambition is secondary to something greater, then you will just create loops that you get caught in. So if we truly want a peaceful world, if we want to honor this planet and honor every living being on it, then coming together in truth and love is the only way.
Yeah, so beautifully said, Michael. And I think the only thing left to do is just end our conversation with a message from one of the greatest teachers of love and truth in our lives. So I'm just going to ask you to turn off your screen there, and I'm going to share our screen.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. You say ciao ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.